Chapter 1161. In the morning, the Dragon Cavalry Regiment and the Heavenly Xingtian Army had officially wiped out the pirates in Shihai Harbor. Nearly 5,000 warships had nowhere to escape. Thousands of pirates were driven ashore, and all the warships, large and small, were pulled into the harbor and temporarily became the property of the Qin Empire. In the afternoon, Sidu Sin held Iron Helmet in his arms and walked into the main hall with his head held high. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Your Highness, the pirate warships of the southern islands have all been gathered around the harbor and the nearby islands. Thousands of pirates are on their way back. Should we execute them along the way and let the people see the final fate of the pirates?" Qin Yin stood in front of the throne and shook her head. "Forget it, the pirates are no longer a threat. Let these pirates join the army. At least they still have some strength." After Situ Sin joined the army, Ding Shi stepped out and cupped his hands. "Your Highness, we have cleared out the provisions. Longxi has hoarded nearly 2 million dawn of provisions in Qianshan City. They are well preserved, enough for our army to use for a season." "Okay," Qin Yin smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Commander Ding Shi. It is my honor to serve the Empire." Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Lin General, now that Qianshan City has been stabilized, the land, taxes, and officials have been re-registered and rewarded, what should we do next?" Lin Muyu, who was thinking about the Battle of Shiping City, was startled and said, "Your Highness, I believe that Qianshan City is not an impregnable fortress. Our army only took 2 hours to capture the city, and to the east of Qianshan City, Hongyan Province and Liaoyuan Xingxing are watching covetously. Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers are not to be trifled with. If we do not destroy Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers, we will not be able to gain a foothold in the territory of the Blackstone Empire." Tang Xiaoxi, who was next to the Empress, was slightly stunned and said, "Shiping City is under attack. Are we really not going to help General Feng? We have to believe that General Feng can resist." Lin Muyu said, "Moreover, we don't need all 400,000 troops to attack Hisong. I only need to lead 150,000 Longdan army camp and 50,000 Baizhe mercenaries to attack. The remaining 100,000 elites and surrendered soldiers can be led by a general to reinforce Shiping City and help General Feng." Qin Yin pursed her red lips and said, "The war is urgent. Who can take on the responsibility?" Qin Yong, Chen Xiaoli and Tang Jin almost stepped out at the same time, cupped their fists and said, "This subject is willing to go." "Commander," Qin Yin was a little hesitant and looked at Muyu. "Commanders," Lin Muyu said, "Muyu is his commander. Feng Commander Sect Division, Dynasty, and King Dynasty Ming Qi is Sect is Ming City." "Oh, who?" "Qian Feng," Lin Muyu said in a deep voice. All the generals looked at Lin Muyu and Qian Feng. After all, Qian Feng was a surrendered general. Now, Lin Muyu actually wanted to hand over 200,000 troops to Qian Feng. This was very surprising. "Marshal, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate, right?" Tang Jin said tactfully. Although Marshal Qian Feng's military strategy is outstanding, he has always been in Bahuang Province and isn't familiar with human life. This, in fact, Tang Jin didn't say it out loud. Those who aren't of the same race are bound to have different intentions. But Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, "How can there be no clothes? I am robed with my son. When the Tianji Empire invaded, Qian Feng was already one of us. If he didn't fight to the death to delay the main force of the Tianji Empire in Bahuang Province, our Qin Empire would have been destroyed. I believe in Qian Feng and I believe in the loyalty forged by sword and blood. Qian Feng is a member of the Empire. Every one of his subordinates is also a citizen of the Empire. They are all our comrades." Qian Feng's eyes were cold. He knelt on one knee and said to Qin Yin, "Qian Feng swears to never betray your Highness and the Empire. I won't hesitate to go through fire and water. If I violate this oath, I will die without a complete corpse." Qin Yin nodded. "Commander Qian Feng, please rise. Lin General trusts you and so do I. Thank you, Your Highness." Lin Muyu cleared her throat and said, "Then it's decided. Qian Feng will be the main commander, Chen Xiaoli will be the vanguard, Qin Yong will be the left, Tangzhen will be the right, Qinyan will be the rear, and Dingxi will be in charge of logistics. Immediately lead 200,000 troops to reinforce Shiping City. Remember to arrive before Shiping City falls. Don't disappoint your highness. Understood. The 6 commanders knelt together and said in unison. Lin Muyu was a subject and didn't say anything. She just tucked the golden helmet under her armpit and said to Si Kongyao, Wei Chou, Sidusen and the others, prepare the provisions. We will set off tomorrow morning to attack Hongyan province and fight it out with Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers. At this moment, the 500,000 troops of the Qin Empire in the Celestial Pole continent were divided into 3 groups. Before dusk, the various prefectures and prefectures of Liaishan province sent their surrender reports one after another. The civil and military officials would arrive at Qianshan City in a day or 2 to pay their respects to the empress. Therefore, this time, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had to stay in Qianshan City to manage the internal affairs while Lin Muyu was in charge of the external affairs and led 200,000 elites to attack the city. At night, the snow stopped and the clouds dispersed. Under the starlight, rows of armored cavalry had already left the city and headed north. They were the vanguard of the reinforcement army, led by Qin Xiaoli. From the high platform in the palace, one could see everything outside the city. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stood side by side and watched the brave warriors of the empire begin their new journey. I don't know if General Feng can withstand 500,000 troops. Qin Yin's eyes were full of worry. He will. Lin Muyu said softly, Who is Big Brother Feng? It's the invincible Feng Jixing. Besides, with the heavy artillery and the Imperial Guards, I believe that he can definitely defend Shiping City. Furthermore, the reinforcements will arrive in 3 to 5 days. Don't worry so much. What about you? Qin Yin turned around and looked at him. The starlight shone on the swirling tears in her eyes as she said in a sobbing tone, You almost died in the battle of the 10-kilometer valley. What will happen to the attack on Hongyan province this time? Brother you are no longer a god. You are just a mortal. Why do you still treat yourself like a god and risk your life? Lin Muyu felt a pain in her heart. She stepped forward to hold her shoulders and said, Xiao Yin, this is the path that we have chosen. Once we have chosen it, there is no turning back. Whether it is a mountain of knives, a sea of fire, or a hell on earth, I will continue on. Don't worry, Hisong's wolf soldiers aren't as powerful as you think. I will definitely be fine. You say that every time. Qin Yin's eyes were misty as she looked at him and said softly, You are so arbitrary every time. You left the Dragon League Masters in Qianshan City. What will you do then? What if Longxi doesn't leave? Will you be able to withstand his attack? I won't. Don't I still have Wei Chou, Si Kongyao, and Sidusen by my side? Qin Yin did not speak anymore. She turned around and looked at the darkness in the distance. Under the cool breeze, she sobbed softly. Lin Muyu did not know how to comfort her. After returning from Earth, Qin Yin began to worry about personal gains and losses. She could not be blamed for this. After seeing the beautiful life, she naturally cherished the people around her even more. This is a crucial battle. Lin Muyu said softly, Xiao Yin, think about it. If I can defeat Hisong's wolf soldiers in Hongyan province, then the war within the territory of the Blackstone Empire can be quelled. The hundreds of city passes on the eastern border of the Blackstone Empire can act as a barrier to resist the threat from the direction of the Celestial Empire. The 3 major provinces and Xishan province can provide us with an endless supply of food. We can then establish a foundation in this foreign land. This is a crucial battle. We cannot avoid it. We can only face it. I know, Qin Yin murmured. Promise me, come back safe and sound. Yes, I promise you. Look me in the eyes and say it again, okay? However, when Lin Muyu lowered his head and looked at Qin Yin's watery eyes, he suddenly had mixed feelings. His nose turned sour and he almost cried. He held Qin Yin's little hand tightly and whispered, Qin Yin, I don't understand why I love you so much, but I just love you. I'm going to patrol the barracks. I'll set off tomorrow at dawn. You don't have to send me off. After saying that, he jumped off the platform and disappeared into the night after a few leaps. He left the city. The Longdan army camp was set up outside the city. Qin Yin stared blankly at his receding figure. Her tears flowed silently. She understood him. He did not want to carry a trace of worry. What was needed in war was a heart of steel, not a heart as soft as water. What a heartless guy, a voice came from behind. Qin Yin knew who it was without looking back. She wiped her tears and said, "Sister Chu Yao, why are you here?" "I was worried about you, so I came to see. Did I disturb you?" "No." Chu Yao, dressed in a white dress, was as spotless as a snow lotus in a cold palace. She walked leisurely to the edge of the platform and kicked the snow with her white boots. "Don't feel sad. He is a famous general born for war. He won the world for you. You should feel happy. There will not be a second man in the world who will treat you like this." I know. Qin Yin suddenly felt a little tired. She sat quietly in the snow with her arms around her knees. Chu Yao also sat down with her and said, "Xishan province and Hongyan province are at war. I don't know how many people will die in this war. Now the spring plowing festival has passed, but there is no sign of spring recovering. I don't know how long the winter will last." Qin Yin was speechless. "Xiao Yin, you should feel happy. You are waiting for him to come back with glory." Chu Yao laughed at herself and said, "Compared to you, others are not so lucky. For example, what about me? What am I waiting for? Waiting for my brother to come back?" Qin Yin's eyes turned red. "I'm sorry, Sister Chu Yao." "Why are you sorry?" Chu Yao pursed her lips and faintly smiled. "Everything is predestined. Following the will of the heavens is the only thing we can do. It's cold outside. Let's go back? You are the empress, graceful and noble. You can't be willful like a little girl." Chapter 1162. On the 14th of January, Xianxia led the army personally. The East Com Army, Thunder Spirit Army, Divine Feather Army, and Heaven's End Army, a total of 550,000 soldiers besieged Shiping City. In the morning after the sun rose, the war drums thundered. The entire Shiping City was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The outside of the city was densely packed with the Shang army, while inside the city, there were only tens of thousands of imperial guards and Mingshan province elites. The rest were injured soldiers, the old, the weak, and the disabled. On the city tower, Feng Jixing wore the vice-marshal's cloak and looked at the Shang army's battle formation in the distance with his hand cupping his eyes. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and said, "Oh my God, there are 100,000 people outside the northern city alone." At the side, Xianxia said, "There is news from all four sides of the city wall. Our positions in the outer city have all been captured. This time, Xianxia has mobilized 500,000 real troops." "How is our defense situation?" Feng Jixing asked. Xianxia said lightly, "There are 30,000 troops assigned to each city gate. As for the 60,000 reserves, we haven't used them yet. They are all recruits who have just been recruited and don't have much combat power. Sending them would just be sending them to their deaths." "I know," Feng Jixing said in a low voice. "Has the wind attribute raw stone been placed?" Guanxing nodded. Senior Luo Tianji said that it was launched 2 hours ago. "It is not suitable for us to send any aerial troops. It is the same for Yushu. He will be easily killed by the windsaws." "That's good." Feng Jixing's eyes were filled with ridicule as he smiled. "Since Xianxia wants to attack the city so much, let them come. Guanxing, you will guard the southern city. Zhang Wei, you will guard the western city. Luo Yu Linsun, you will guard the eastern city." After assigning the generals, Feng Jixing took an apple from the fruit platter behind him and took a big bite. He turned around and sat on the city wall with a provocative smile in his eyes. "Prepare for battle. Fire the cannons when the enemy is 2,000 meters away. Fire the ballistae when the enemy is 500 meters away. Fire the oil in the moat when the enemy is 100 meters away. Draw your swords when the enemy is 10 meters away." "Yes, Vice Marshal." Everyone nodded in unison. Xianxia smiled faintly. "What are you laughing at?" Feng Jixing glanced at him. Xianxia smiled and said, "In the entire world, only you, Feng Jixing, can fight like this. However, this general wholeheartedly accepts your defeat. It is not a coincidence that a person like you can win every battle." "What are you talking about? You really don't know how to speak." Feng Jixing mumbled to himself for a while before shouting, "Pass down my order. Anyone who kills one enemy will be rewarded with 100 Jin Yin coins. Anyone who kills 2 enemies will be promoted by 1 level. Anyone who kills 5 enemies will be promoted by 3 levels. So on and so forth until I can no longer give you a promotion. If you kill 100 people, I'll give you the mansion I secretly bought in Lanyan City. Kill 1,000 people and I'll give all my concubines to you." Everyone burst into laughter. A centurion laughed and said, "Commander, you don't even have a concubine. Besides, aren't you afraid that Her Highness Ing will accuse you of accepting bribes?" "What's there to be afraid of, Her Highness Ing? She's my sister-in-law. Damn it, that's what you should be asking. Sit tight on your cannon platform. Don't let a magic crystal cannon blast you backwards." "Yes, Commander." As the enemy approached, the magic crystal cannons on the city walls began to fire. Beautiful purple flowers bloomed on the plains in the distance. However, there were too few magic crystal cannons in Shiping City, and their ammunition was almost exhausted. Therefore, they could only serve as a deterrent. As for killing the enemy, they had to wait for them to get closer. Below the city walls, the sound of the war drums grew more intense. The Shang army's siege weapons appeared and approached the city under the protection of countless heavily shielded cavalry. "Ballisti!" Feng Jixing waved his hand. Immediately, a type of defense weapon made of steel began to fire. Huge rocks were shot out. Due to the height of the city, the projectiles could reach a distance of several hundred meters. Furthermore, they were all round rocks. Bang, bang, bang. Huge rocks fell on the crowd below the city walls and rolled rapidly, crushing the Shang army soldiers into meat paste. Screams of pain rang out incessantly. Soon, the enemy's battle formation began to fall into disorder. "They're getting closer," Xianxia said in a deep voice. Feng Jixing raised his arm and threw away the apple core. "Crossbows, prepare to shoot." On the city walls, a dense number of archers were already in position. They pulled out their bows in layers and prepared to shoot. The city walls of Shiping City were very thick. There were a total of 10 layers of archers, which meant that they could fire 10 rounds of arrows in a minute. One could well imagine how powerful they were. Even the arrow boxes, stone cannons, and other weapons were pushed out. "Fire!" Xianxia roared. In an instant, countless arrows fell from the sky like a swarm of locusts. Below the city walls, most of the soldiers did not have shields and could only use their flesh and blood to block the arrows. After all, forging a shield required a large amount of steel. However, there was not that much steel in the celestial pole continent. It was simply impossible to equip everyone with a shield. In the blink of an eye, there was a pile of corpses at the bottom of the city walls. However, the siege ladders and siege towers were getting closer and closer. Feng Jixing saw this and his gaze turned cold. He said, "Fire arrows, set them on fire." After a round of fire arrows, the siege towers caught fire one after another. However, the effect was clearly not that good. By the time the siege towers caught fire, they had already approached the city walls and lowered their slabs. Xianxia narrowed his eyes and said, "We can't hold them off anymore. Use the heavenly book." Feng Jixing roared, "Wind-type heavenly book, aim at the siege towers." Some of the experts from the Dragon League activated the energy of the heavenly book. Suddenly, a storm erupted in the air and swept forward. The biting cold wind blades were unstoppable and turned the siege towers into dust. The soldiers wielding longswords in the siege towers also died tragically, their bodies a bloody mess. "They have reached the moat. Fire!" Feng Jixing ordered. The fire arrows were fired and the moat was immediately set ablaze. Some of the Shang army soldiers, who were caught off guard, immediately fell into the sea of fire. Soon, a strong burning smell spread in the air. The entire Shiping City was in the midst of war. The kingdom of Shang had already sent several times the number of the enemy to attack the city. It seemed like they were determined to win. However, the fierce battle continued until dusk. The Shang army was still stopped at the moat. They couldn't even get close to the city walls. Finally, a dragon's roar came from the sky in the distance. They had mobilized the dragon cavalry regiment. "They're here." Feng Jixing immediately ordered, "Dragon hunting crossbows, sky shooting cannons, get ready." The soldiers on the city walls raised their weapons and faced the enemies in the sky. The huge figures swooped down one after another. As usual, dragon flames surged from the necks of the huge dragons, waiting for the most powerful attack on the ground. However, before the huge dragons could approach the ground, there were suddenly popping sounds. The tough dragon armors were directly torn apart, and the dragon riders died in the air one after another. They were like flies that had been electrocuted, and they continuously fell into the city. Haha. Xianxia laughed heartily. Feng Jixing couldn't help but laugh as well. "I've seen rain in my life, but I've never seen a dragon cavalry regiment in the rain. How rare." At this moment, all of the generals in the Shang army camp were shocked. "What's going on? Why did more than half of our dragon cavalry die in an instant?" Xianxia was shocked. "It seems to be some kind of powerful barrier," Qinyu said. "Recall the dragon cavalry regiment immediately." Sun Shi's gaze was gloomy. "Your Majesty, sound the gongs to retreat. It's going to be night soon. Our army isn't prepared enough. We can't attack the city during the night. Let's fight tomorrow at dawn." "Damn it." Xianxia clenched his teeth and said, "I'm going to die from anger, I'm going to die from anger." Qinyu smiled faintly. "Your Majesty, this subject has a plan. Please speak, Marshal." "Your Majesty, do you still remember the plan that Lord Sun Shi once proposed? The Empire's defeated army was released by Lin Muyu. Now, this subject has secretly ordered a portion of the defeated army to return to Shiping City. These people have already been taken in by Feng Jixing and formed into a 5,000-man patrol army. During the day, it will be Feng Jixing's army that will defend the city, but at night, it will be these 5,000-man patrol army that will stand guard. This subject has already made an agreement with the city guards. At midnight, we will light a fire as a signal. They will open the city gates and cooperate with us to break through the city. No matter how powerful Feng Jixing is at defending the city, he won't be able to defeat our 200,000-man cavalry in urban warfare. Marshal, are you confident? This subject is willing to personally lead the troops to attack the city. That's good. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. We will wait here to celebrate Marshal's success. Yes, then this subject will go and prepare. The bright starlight shone on the city walls. Most of the soldiers had already fallen asleep. A cool breeze blew gently. In the corridor of the city tower, a square table was placed there. On it were a few dishes and a pot of flower wine. Feng Jixing used the light from the lantern to search for the rare green beans with his chopsticks. He looked very carefully. Xianxia sat opposite him with a calm gaze, drinking cup after cup of wine. At this moment, Guanxing, dressed in a long gown, walked over and said, "Commander, this subordinate has already made arrangements. There are many soldiers lying in ambush in the 4 barbicans. They are using the best white drill arrows." "Very good." Feng Jixing nodded. Guanxing frowned and said, "But this subordinate does not understand. Why are you so sure that these surrendered soldiers are pretending to surrender? Logically or emotionally, there are no signs of them pretending to surrender. The Great Qin Empire's battle on the East Sea has settled the situation. It is reasonable for them to submit to us. Moreover, it is only natural for them to surrender in order to earn a living." Feng Jixing smiled faintly. "Guanxing, you only know the art of war, but you do not understand the trifling common sense. Please enlighten me, Commander." "It's very simple." Feng Jixing put down his chopsticks and said, "Just because they left and returned, it must be a fake surrender. There is no such logic in the world. If they wanted to surrender, they would have done so long ago. Why wait until they left and then come back? Sun Shi and Qinyu think that they are using extraordinary tactics and will definitely win, but they forget that there is common sense in the world. If they go against common sense, it will be too easy to see through them. Guanxing was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. This subordinate was too careless. It is really shameful. Go and make the arrangements. After the battle, just tell me how many people you killed. Yes. Chapter 1163. That night, the barbican was ablaze with fire. Thousands of arrows were fired. The white diamond arrows were powerful enough to penetrate armor and shields. Even those wearing heavy armor could not escape. The sounds of killing continued until dawn. There was no one left alive in the barbican. At daybreak, Feng Jixing personally inspected the battlefield. Snow fell from the sky once again. The flying snow melted with the blood on the ground, forming a depth of 2 centimeters. A portion of Feng Jixing's combat boots was submerged in the blood. Corpses were piled up all around the barbican. Many soldiers were pulling arrows from the corpses. The white diamond arrows were very precious and had to be retrieved. Guanxing and Lin Sun followed closely behind. Guanxing said, "Commander, you have foresight. They are indeed here." Lin Sun said, "Commander, we did not find Qin Yu's corpse. However, a soldier said last night that Qin Yu was shot by more than one arrow. With Qin Yu's cultivation, he might not be able to survive even if we save him." Qin Yu escaped. Feng Jixing looked disappointed. What he wanted to see the most in this battle was Qin Yu being shot dead. After all, Qin Yu was the real enemy. If it was just Yang Shang, it would be nothing. Lin Sun continued, "They launched a surprise attack from 3 barbican. There are more than 13,000 corpses in the barbican. Most of them are cavalrymen. It seems that Qin Yu planned to use the cavalry to launch a surprise attack on Shiping Prefecture and take us down in one fell swoop. Fortunately, we were prepared. Besides, the 5,000 surrendered soldiers have been taken down. What should we do with them?" "Kill them," Feng Jixing said calmly. He then turned to look into the distance and said, "With Qin Yu's defeat, there will be an even more tragic siege this morning. Pass down the order. Prepare the 3 armies for battle." Not long after, the war drums rumbled. In the distance below the city, heavy-duty projectors appeared and threw burning oil cans into the city. Not long after, Shiping City was engulfed in flames. On the second day of the siege, the Shang army attacked with fire. Organize the people in the city to carry water to put out the fire. Feng Jixing's gaze was indifferent as he said, "Don't panic. The archers must not stop shooting. We can't let them get close to the city. Once the fire attack is over, it will be the ladder attack." "Yes, Commander." Guanxing swept his gaze across the area, and the 3 Kiliarchs acknowledged the order and left. As expected, after nearly 2 hours of continuous bombardment, the drums of the Shang army started beating in unison. Ladders and siege towers once again appeared in the ranks. Although over 100 of these machines had been destroyed yesterday, another one had appeared today. It seemed like they had long been prepared. "How long do you think they'll last?" Feng Jixing asked. Guanxing's gaze was like a torch as he said, "The Shang army has as many as 500,000 men and horses. After yesterday's attack and night raid, they suffered about 50,000 casualties. I believe that Yang Shang must have given a death order to take down Shiping Prefecture within a limited time. Otherwise, these soldiers wouldn't be working so hard. Based on this momentum, it won't be a problem for them to attack for half a month." Feng Jixing frowned and said, "It's a pity that our supplies can't last that long." "Commander, what's wrong? Half of the arrowheads, magic crystal crossbows, and arrow boxes have been used up yesterday. There are less than 2,000 magic crystal cannons left, and a lot of the heavenly books have been used up. The Shang army can continue to attack for half a month, but we can only hold on for 3 days at most." Lin Sun frowned and said, "Commander, after today's battle, I will lead the reserve troops out of the city to pull out the arrows. Even if we are ambushed, only the reserve troops will die." "Pull out the arrows out of the city?" Feng Jixing said calmly, "Do you know what will happen if they launch a surprise attack?" Lin Sun smiled and said, "But what does it matter? Since I am loyal to Her Highness, It is my honor to die in battle for the Empire. It is also the honor of a soldier. Approved. Be careful when you leave the city. It doesn't matter if the reserve troops die, but you can't die. Keep your life and prepare for the street battles after the city is breached. Yes. The word, breach the city, was like a heavy hammer that fell on the hearts of Lin Sun, Guanxing, Zhang Wei, and the others. Feng Jixing looked further ahead. Had he already predicted that Shiping City would definitely fall? Huge rocks smashed against the city walls, causing the outer walls of Shiping City to buzz. The people on the city walls seemed to have experienced a huge earthquake. The outer walls of the city walls were peeling off continuously, revealing the solid mud bricks made of clay and glutinous rice. No one had expected the inside of Shiping City's city walls to look like this. Feng Jixing and Xianxia looked at each other in dismay. What the hell is this? Xianxia asked. Mud bricks. Many farmers' houses in the mountains are built this way. Mud mixed with glutinous rice will be very solid after it dries. It can be considered as one of the local customs of the celestial pole continent. Is it stronger than a stone wall? Xianxia was somewhat annoyed. Feng Jixing smiled and said, as you can imagine, the original owner of Shiping City used the money saved from building the city walls to build an even more luxurious palace. The source of this money is obvious. What a scam! Xianxia gnashed his teeth. Can this mud brick wall withstand the artillery fire of the Shang army? No, but it won't be destroyed in a short period of time. In the face of the enemy's fierce attack, Feng Jixing was still calm and unruffled. It was only when the Shang army in the distance began to use the corpses of their own soldiers to fill in the moat that Feng Jixing finally lost his composure. He frowned and said, "What kind of monsters are Xianxia's subordinates? They are really unscrupulous. Aren't they afraid of disappointing the morale of the army?" Lin Sun said, after Xianxia became Emperor Shang, he has always ruled the country with iron laws. It is the same in the army. The hierarchy of superiors and subordinates is very strict. Even 10-man commanders have the authority to deal with the soldiers under their command at any time and place. The entire Shang army operates like a huge machine. Its purpose is only to attack and plunder. If it wasn't for the elites of our Qin Empire, I'm afraid that not many people in the world would be able to withstand it. Feng Jixing sneered. Is someone like Xianxia worthy of being a god? I finally understand why the heavens want to deprive the gods of their power. Commander, look over there. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and pointed into the distance. There, rows of soldiers holding silver shields left the central army in an orderly manner and went straight towards the direction of the city. Those soldiers looked very elite. The shields and silver steel swords in their hands were shining with a faint luster. What army is that? Feng Jixing asked. Divine Feather Battalion. Xianxia squinted his eyes and said, it is the most elite army under Xianxia's command. It is the 50,000 Divine Feather Battalion led by the former battle angel Dora. Most of the people in the Divine Feather Battalion were originally from the Northern Heaven Realm. Their combat power is very amazing. Be careful. It seems that Xianxia has already planned to use the strongest army to attack the city. Oh, so it seems that Xianxia has already lost his patience. Feng Jixing smiled faintly and said, Lin Sun, go and gather the 5,000 Iron Armor Battalion of the Imperial Army to help me defend the city. In addition, stop shooting all the arrow boxes and replace them with white diamond arrows. Everyone, don't be stingy. Give me weapons tempered with white diamond. He suddenly pulled out the Scarlet Phoenix blade and stabbed it into the stone floor in the middle of the city wall. He said coldly, everyone listen to my orders. Do not let a single enemy cross this line. Otherwise, don't be a soldier and go home to farm. Everyone was solemn. Xianxia also held the bloodthirsty spear and said to the deputy general, go, bring my guard battalion here. We can't hold back anymore. Yes, Commander. Not long after, almost all the guards on the city wall were changed. They were all elites of the Imperial Army and Mingshan Province's garrison. Feng Jixing and Xianxia had almost taken out their trump cards. Archers, keep shooting. Aim and shoot. Zhang Wei shouted. Ladders were placed on the edge of the city wall. They were too strong and could not be pushed down at all. The first batch of Shang soldiers had already been shot dead. In the distance, the Godly Feathers Battalion with silver shields and armor had arrived. They wore the emblem of wings on their shoulders. That was the symbol of the Godly Feathers Battalion, and it was also the symbol of their glory. I'm afraid even silver weapons aren't that sturdy. A bunch of flashy but impractical fools. Zhang Wei said lightly. Lin Sun smiled and said, "That's not silver weapons, but white steel that has a luster similar to silver. It's very sturdy. Long swords made of white steel can be said to be invincible. At the very least, it can cut inferior armor in half. Be careful, they're coming up." Arrows rained down on the city wall, but the majority of the Divine Feather Battalion were protected by their armor. Furthermore, their combat quality was very high. They climbed the ladders with one hand and raised their shields with the other, deflecting the arrows from the archers on the city wall. Unless it was a strong archer with godly strength in both arms, even white diamond arrows couldn't pierce through the white steel. Spears. At Lin Sun's command, a group of spearmen raised their 3-meter-long iron spears and stabbed at the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers on the ladders. However, most of the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers were originally gods, so they weren't that easy to kill. They blocked the spears with their swords and charged forward. "How can we do this?" "Shoot them with the boxes of arrows." Feng Jixing shouted. A row of boxes of arrows was placed horizontally, and after a round of fierce shooting, the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers fell from the city wall one after another, covered in blood. Even their battle armor and white steel armor couldn't save their lives. Huh! Atop the ladders, Duo La looked up at the corpses of the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers falling from the city wall, and his face immediately turned livid. "Charge! Hurry up! We have to finish this quickly." A dense group of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers charged straight up the city wall. Buzz! A King Do Yen rushed up the city wall. It was a general of the Divine Feather Battalion with a high cultivation base. He held a steel sword in his hand and continuously killed 3 Imperial Army soldiers. His face was ferocious as he sneered, "You trash want to stop me?" Clang! Feng Jixing pulled out the Crimson Phoenix saber from the ground and the Azure Dragon saber in his left hand. He shouted, "F***CK Gran Mali. Come at me." The general also laughed heartily and charged over while waving his long sword. Chapter 1164. Bang! A huge wave of King's battle flames swept out. Feng Jixing's strength was obviously inferior to the opponent's, and he was shaken several steps back, but the opponent was not much better. Feng Jixing's martial god art was very powerful, and the power penetrated into his arms, making him feel as if his strength was being devoured, and his face was slightly shocked. "What are you waiting for? Armor-piercing bow?" Feng Jixing shouted. Behind him, more than a dozen soldiers of the Iron Armor camp raised their black muzzles and fired at the Holy King Realm expert in front of them. Suddenly, bullets flew everywhere, and the Holy King Realm expert could only take out his battle armor to defend, but the scorching heat and armor-piercing power of the bullets made him extremely uncomfortable. After all, he was not at the Divine Realm, and could not withstand such a barrage. After a round of shooting, Zhang Wei roared and swept his long saber across. "Bastard!" The opponent roared, grabbed Zhang Wei's long saber with one hand, and said angrily, "Trash like you want to kill me?" Ka! With a crisp sound, his head flew up, and Feng Jixing's saber ended his life, and blood splashed all over Zhang Wei. "Do you still think this is a one-on-one fight?" Feng Jixing kicked his body and shouted, "Defend the city, kill!" Waving the ice and fire blades in his hands, he advanced back and forth on the city walls, killing the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion one by one. As for Zhang Wei, Lin Sun and the rest, they became more and more courageous as they fought. One after another, the heavenly books blossomed on the city walls, sending off the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion who rashly rushed up the city walls. Hong! A burning light suddenly appeared on the city wall. It was Dora. 4 wings faintly condensed behind her, and the sharp sword in her hand was surrounded by the power of the law of black light. As soon as she appeared, she killed many people in succession, forcing a group of imperial army soldiers to retreat again, and more soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion behind her gathered in the blink of an eye and had a great momentum. Feng Jixing raised his two sabers and charged over. At the same time, Xianxia also roared and transformed into a flaming beam of light that shot toward Dora. In the past, Xianxia had been defeated by Duo La. This was the disgrace of his life. Iron Shield Formation, press forward. Lin Sun ordered loudly. On the city wall, countless soldiers of the iron-armored camp rushed up with their heavy shields, trying to push down the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion who had rushed up the city wall. In the air, Feng Jixing and Xianxia had already fought many rounds with Duo La. The two of them were fighting against one, but they were unable to gain the upper hand. Duo La's strength was maintained at the Holy King realm, which was obviously a level higher than theirs. Lin Sun sheathed his sword and snatched a bow from his subordinate. He knocked an arrow and shot. The arrow pierced through the air with an ear-piercing sound as it headed straight for Dora's neck. Ha! Dora was startled and hurriedly dodged with his battle flames, but Feng Jixing's Crimson Phoenix saber swept across his body, shattering his battle armor. Combined with Xiangyu's spear, which was imbued with the power of his martial soul, even someone as powerful as Duo La was blasted off the city wall. The shield formation continued to press forward, and cold gun muzzles extended from between the shields. They fired a volley of bullets at the Divine Feather Battalion. Instantly, those with lower cultivation were shot to death, and blood flowed all over the ground. Coupled with Feng Jixing's heaven-devouring demonic saber, a violent storm surged, and dozens of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers fell off the city wall. Just like that, the first wave of attacks was repelled. Feng Jixing panted heavily. Blood seeped from his arm through his white robe. That was a wound caused by Duo La's sword. Add fuel to all the scaling ladders and burn them. He ordered loudly, his forehead dripping with cold sweat. Xianxia wasn't much better off. There were 2 sword wounds on his shoulder. Although the wounds weren't deep, if it weren't for Lin Sun's sword, he might have been killed by Duo La. Woo woo. In the distance, the sound of Shang army's horn to retreat could be heard. Duo La gritted his teeth and returned to the formation. He led a group of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers to Xianxia and asked in confusion, "Marshal, why did you order us to retreat? Give me another chance. The Divine Feather Battalion will definitely be able to take the city." "We know." Xianxia's gaze was indifferent. "Give us another chance. The Divine Feather Battalion will naturally be able to take the city wall, but they will also lose a large number of warriors. We can't let these disciples of the immortal realm die in vain at the hands of mortals, so let the mortals attack. Duo La, come sit beside me. You just need to watch the battle. Your Majesty, please give me another chance. Come sit beside me. Do you want to defy the imperial decree?" Xianxia's gaze was burning. Duo La didn't dare to say anything else and returned to Xianxia's side. Xianxia narrowed his eyes and looked at the group of civil and military officials. "We have personally led the troops here for 2 days, but we still haven't been able to take Shiping City. There are only 2 troops, Feng Jixing and Xianxia, in this city. They aren't the most elite troops of the Qin Empire, the Longdan army camp. Moreover, we haven't been able to take it down after such a long time. If Lin Muyu were to come, what would happen?" Everyone hurriedly knelt down and said in unison, "We are incompetent. We are guilty of the death penalty." "That's right. You are guilty of the death penalty." Xianxia sneered. Last night, Marshal Chen Yu's sneak attack was seen through and he was ambushed. He was also wounded by an arrow. Who else has a good plan to take the city? The second strategist, Gong Bujin, said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, I have a plan. However, I'm afraid it will take some time." "Speak." Shiping City is low-lying. The Lu River, which is 20 li away, has been filled with water due to the melting of the snow. If our army excavates the Lu River and diverts the water to Shiping City, we can drown Shiping City at least 3 meters deep. Even if we can't drown Feng Jixing to death, we can at least deplete the rations and equipment in the city. All we have to do is wait. Within half a month, Feng Jixing's army will definitely be defeated. Xianxia was silent. The injured Qin Yu coughed and frowned. This is a vicious plan. Your Majesty, you must not adopt it. Why, Marshal? There are millions of civilians in Shiping City. Once Shiping City is flooded, the ones who will die are the civilians. They were originally your Majesty's subjects. Subjects? Xianxia smiled. They are but ants. If Marshal Qin Yu doesn't have a better plan, why don't our army try Mr. Gong Bujin's plan? What do you think? Qin Yu frowned. After some thought, he said, I have an idea. Speak. Let's do as Gong Bujin says. Our army will no longer besiege the city. The three armies will retreat to high ground and send a large number of soldiers to excavate the Lu River. Gong Bujin couldn't help but laugh. Marshal Qin Yu, this is clearly my plan. Why do you say it's yours? This is only one of the reasons. Chen Yu smiled faintly and cupped his hands in greeting to Xianxia. Your Majesty, our army has a total of 500,000 soldiers. We can store all of our rations in Huoshi Commandery, which is 15 kilometers north of Shiping City. The three armies will dig the Lu River. Who do you think Feng Jixing is? Once he learns of this, he will definitely not sit and wait for death. Furthermore, both Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu are famed generals for raiding rations. I believe that they will definitely send elite troops out of the city to launch a sneak attack on Huoshi Commandery. Our army can then set up an ambush in Huoshi Commandery and defeat Feng Jixing's elite troops in one fell swoop. Then, we can follow up our victory and attack Shiping City. What a good move to advance by retreating. Xianxia laughed heartily. With Marshal Qin Yu around, I have nothing to worry about. Do as I say. Order the three armies to stop attacking the city and retreat to higher ground. Send all of our rations and supplies to Huoshi Commandery. Yes, Your Majesty. It was nighttime. Heavy snow swirled in the air, and Shiping City was deathly silent. On the city gate tower, the heater was no longer hot. Feng Jixing, dressed in a blood-stained cloak, gazed into the distance and muttered, Has Xianxia really retreated? What is he trying to do? Beside him, Guanxing said respectfully, Our scouts have reported that Xianxia has indeed retreated. Most of his troops are camped in the mountains, and a portion of them are heading east. East? What's in the east? 10 kilometers away is the Lu River. The water level of the Lu River has already risen. Feng Jixing turned around and placed his hands on the map on the table. Could it be that Xianxia wants to flood Shiping City? It's highly possible. Guanxing smiled. They have been attacking for a long time and have suffered heavy losses. They can't afford to waste any more time. Once our southern army returns, they will attack from both inside and outside. The Shang army will be in a desperate situation. Is there any news from the southern army? We have just removed the wind attribute raw stones, but we still haven't received any news. It's possible that the messenger birds of the southern army have been mistakenly killed by the windsaw. This is really a headache. I haven't seen any scout bees in the past few days. Yes, those little bees seem to be hibernating. It's possible that they have been killed by the windsaw. This windsaw would rather kill the wrong people than let them go. The next day, the military report arrived at Shiping Prefecture again. This time, it was about Xianxia's army stockpiling rations. Fire County. Fire County. Feng Jixing buried his head in the map and looked around. Commander, Fire County is not marked. It is too small. In fact, it is only a small town. It should be in this position. Guanxing pointed at a certain place on the map. So close, Feng Jixing's heart raced. This was the most natural reaction of a famous general when he saw an opportunity. He said, About 15 kilometers. The cavalry will arrive in an hour. How much rations are there in total? About 1,000,000 stones. They are all resources collected from the virtuous Sky Province and East Com Province. Guanxing smiled. Commander, this is too close. It's like they are giving it to us. Don't you find it strange? It is indeed strange, but it is also very tempting. Feng Jixing slowly sat down. Sometimes, I know it might be bait, but I still want to take a bite. What should I do? Commander, do you really want to take a bite? Feng Jixing took a deep breath. Chen Yu and Xianxia are bait for me. If I don't take a bite, wouldn't I be disrespecting them? Commander, what do you mean? Before Marshal Lin left, he left behind 2,000 winged clan members for me. These winged clan members are equipped with fire starters, so it shouldn't be a problem for them to burn 1,000,000 tons of rations. Immediately pass down my order to mobilize the entire city. I order Zhang Wei to lead 30,000 men and set off at midnight for Wuxia Prefecture with great fanfare. However, they are not to enter within a 5-kilometer radius of Wuxia Prefecture. The winged clan will mainly set the area on fire in the sky. Yes, Commander is wise. This subordinate will get to it immediately. Don't be in a hurry to leave. There is still a second order. Qi Shiping Prefecture's 30,000 cavalrymen are to launch a surprise attack on the Shang army's camp at night. Since Yangshang has set the bait in Fire County, I will take the bait at Lu River. They will definitely not be on guard. Feng Jixing stood up and looked in the direction of Lu River, his cloak fluttering in the wind. Guanxing stood there in a daze. As the saying goes, the art of war is deceitful. He finally understood what was going on. Chapter 1165. After nightfall, there was no light in the starry night. The entire West Mountain province was shrouded in the curtain of darkness. In Wuxia Prefecture, a flock of crows remained silent on the withered branches. Every now and then, a flock of them would take flight. The entire Wuxia Prefecture was filled with soldiers from all directions. Yangshang had deployed a total of 300,000 elite soldiers to ambush them here. But after a long while, all they heard was the clamor of Zhang Wei's troops from afar. Not a single person entered Wuxia Prefecture's granaries. Not long after, beams of light descended from the sky. These were the kindling materials thrown down by the Wing tribe. The granaries caught fire one after another. Because they had been piled up in a hurry, most of the granaries were connected together. Once the fire started, it quickly spread. Under the tree, the distant flames illuminated Yangshang's expression. He squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. Why haven't their aerial troops been attacked by the blades in the wind? Sun Shi frowned. I don't know either. Perhaps the blades are under Feng Jixing's control. Put out the fire immediately. Send the cavalry to flank the enemy from behind and kill them. Yes. At the same time, the camp on the banks of the Lu River was ablaze. Amidst the flames, the silhouettes of the Imperial Guards could be seen flying past. Feng Jixing was dressed in a white robe and personally led the troops to attack the camp. Wherever he passed, no one could stop him. The 30,000 cavalrymen killed whoever they saw. They broke through 3 camps in a row and killed countless enemies. Feng Jixing's 2 sabers were already dripping with blood. In a short 2 hours, the 30,000 cavalrymen had crushed the 100,000 soldiers on the banks of the river. The Imperial Army's cavalry moved like lightning, catching the enemy off guard. Originally, the Shang army had dragon riders as scouts. However, most of them had been killed by the windsaws, so they didn't dare to fly into the sky. As a result, they suffered a crushing defeat tonight. Feng Jixing looked at the sky. 2 hours had passed. He raised his bloodied crimson phoenix saber and shouted, "Retreat! The 3rd camp will take the lead, the 2nd in the middle, and the 3rd at the rear. Retreat to Shiping City at full speed." The drums rumbled. Not many of the 30,000 cavalrymen were killed. Like a gust of wind, they quickly disappeared into the night, leaving behind a messy Shang army campsite. At daybreak, the provisions camp in Wuxia Commandery was shrouded in smoke. The fire had finally been extinguished, but a large amount of provisions had been lost. In the central tent, Yangshang, who had received the military report, trembled. His chest was blocked, and he almost couldn't continue. He slammed the table with an ashen face and roared, "Why is it like this?" Lu River had nearly 200,000 infantrymen. How could they be defeated so easily? The commander, whose helmet was covered in blood, knelt on the ground, trembling, and said, "They came too fast, and they were all well-equipped cavalry. We didn't even receive any news before all the cavalry were killed. It was only when we heard the sound of hooves that we knew the enemy had attacked our camp, but it was already too late. 3 camps were breached consecutively, and we suffered more than 60,000 casualties. Trash. A bunch of trash." Xianxia flew into a rage. Soon she looked at the commander and said, "Your vigilance is too lax. What are you doing here? Are you waiting for His Majesty to chop off your head?" "Yes, this general will take his leave." He hurriedly left. How could this be? How could this be the result? Xianxia looked confused. "We used Huoshi commandery as bait with 300,000 soldiers as bait, but why did Feng Jixing use 200,000 infantrymen as bait? Is there such a fish in the world that would take the bait?" Soon she said, "Your Majesty, I'm afraid that Marshal Qin Yu's plan has already been seen through by Feng Jixing. That's why Feng Jixing attacked while we were unprepared, killing countless of our men at Lu River." "Qin Yu, what do you say?" Xianxia suddenly slammed the table with a murderous aura. Qin Yu sat there dejectedly and murmured, "This defeat is all my fault. I underestimated Feng Jixing's strategy. Your Majesty, please punish me. Qin Yu is willing to accept any punishment. Men, remove Marshal Qin Yu's rank and demote him to Cheji General. I will temporarily take over the position of Marshal. Soon she will be the military advisor of the army. Immediately devise a plan to break through Shiping City." "Yes." Qin Yu knelt there quietly. He had been demoted by 2 ranks in an instant, but he was not angry. Instead, he laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Xianxia said coldly. Qin Yu said self-deprecatingly, "I am not a match for Lin Muyu or Feng Jixing. I deserve this outcome. Your Majesty is wise." Xianxia's gaze swept across the crowd and said, "Let's discuss what we should do next. Our rations are already running low. Furthermore, Feng Jixing is currently at the peak of his power. I'm afraid we won't be able to take down Shiping City in a short period of time." Sun Shi said, "Marshal, Shiping City is also running low on rations. Even if Si Kongyao has hoarded a portion of rations, Shiping City's rations have always been supplied by the surrounding farms and counties. Almost every day, there are caravans transporting rations into Shiping City. However, after we besiege the city, the supply from the merchant associations and the caravans has been cut off. The rations for nearly 2 million people in Shiping City is not a small number. As long as we surround Shiping City, I am certain that they will collapse on their own." Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, and the other generals from Shattered Cauldron Realm claim to be benevolent and righteous. They are not willing to eat humans, so they won't be able to hold out for long. Good. Immediately send orders to the surrounding counties to prepare rations. We can hold out, but Feng Jixing cannot. Xianxia's gaze turned cold. He looked at Qin Yu and said, "General Qin Yu, your hometown, Xianxia City, has always been famous for its abundance of rations. Since the front lines no longer need you, why don't General lead 500 cavalry back to Xianxia City and prepare rations on my behalf?" The surrounding generals were stunned. Xianxia wanted Xianxia to be a rations officer. This was too humiliating. Marshal, Vice Commander of the Heavens End Corps, Wei Qiang, had an ugly expression as he called out to Qin Yu in a low voice. Qin Yu pretended not to hear. He lowered his head and kowtowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your trust. I will prepare rations as soon as possible and send them to the front lines." Go. Give the commander's seal of the Heavens End Corps to Wei Qiang. The corps will be under Wei Qiang's command for the time being. Yes. At noon in Qin Yu's tent, he had already packed up and was ready to set out. What? The tent flap was suddenly opened. 2 generals walked in with their hands on the hilt of their swords. One of them was the temporary commander of the Heavens End Corps, Wei Qiang. The other had his head lowered, and his face could not be seen. "Raise your face," Qin Yu said indifferently. That person raised his head. Instantly, Qin Yu was shocked. Zhou Binlong? It was Zhou Binlong, the general who guarded Xianxia City and commanded the 200,000-strong Earth's End Corps. "Yes, General." Zhou Binlong and Wei Qiang knelt together. Your Majesty, we are all old subordinates of the Celestial Empire. Now that your Majesty has suffered such humiliation, General Wei and I can't stand it anymore. As long as your Majesty gives the order, we are willing to lead our troops to take back the entire Celestial Empire and restore the rule of our Celestial Empire. Are you all crazy? Chen Yu asked indifferently. Wei Qiang shook his head. We are not crazy. Your Majesty, think about it. That was then and this is now. Back then, when Xianxia had 60,000 celestial soldiers under his command, we naturally wouldn't be able to stop him. But now, all of Xianxia's subordinates are mortals, and we have 400,000 soldiers under our command. In addition to the garrisons of the various provinces of the Celestial Empire, we have close to 1 million soldiers. Why should we lower ourselves to a despicable person like Xianxia? This general has also seen the situation today. Victory and defeat are common in war. Xianxia vented his anger on your Majesty just because he lost. Such a person is not worthy of your Majesty's loyalty. As long as your Majesty says the word, we are willing to shed our blood and die 10,000 times over. Get up, everyone. Be careful that the walls have ears. Chen Yu's gaze was indifferent as he said, this matter needs to be discussed at length. Wei Qiang, you must find a good opportunity to lead the 200,000 elites of the heavens and core back to our homeland. As for me, once I leave, I will be like a dragon returning to the sea, a bird returning to the forest. I'm afraid I will never return. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Wei Qiang's gaze was burning as he said, this subject has just received news that Lin Muyu has already dispatched Qian Feng as the chief commander, with Qin Xiaoli, Qin Yan, and Tang Zhen as the generals. They are leading a 200,000-strong army to reinforce Shiping City. They will arrive within 3 days. Once these 200,000 troops arrive, Feng Jixing will be able to launch a counterattack from within and without. When that time comes, the Shang army will likely fall into chaos. This subject will find an opportunity to feign defeat and lead the troops eastward to return to our homeland. Good. Chen Yu said, Zhou Binlong, immediately dispatch a large number of troops to guard the pass outside the Forest of No Return and seal off the entire territory of the Celestial Empire. Issue my imperial edict. When Wei Qiang returns with the heavens and core, it will be the day our Celestial Empire reclaims our homeland. Phoenix Mountain was located at the border between the Liaishan province and the Hongyan province. It was named for the appearance of phoenixes, but that was an ancient legend. As for whether phoenixes actually existed, no one could say for sure. Fenghuang Mountain stretched for hundreds of miles, forming a natural barrier between the two provinces. In the middle of the mountain, there was a stronghold called Fenghuang Pass. It was a huge stronghold that could accommodate 100,000 soldiers. Coincidentally, He Song had sent General Lin Shuang to lead 100,000 wolf soldiers to defend Fenghuang Pass. On the west side of the mountain range, the 200,000 elites under Lin Muyu's command had already set up camp. Banners fluttered in the wind as they formed a large line. It was an astonishing sight, but they wouldn't be able to take down Phoenix Mountain in a short period of time. The defending troops of Phoenix Mountain also didn't dare to act rashly. If they were to fight in the forest, it would only take a day for the Longdan army camp to devour the 100,000 wolf soldiers. A cool breeze blew gently in the afternoon. Above the mountain range, Lin Muyu led Wei Chou, Si Kongyao, Sidusin, and the others to survey the terrain. From afar, Phoenix Pass looked like a colossus entrenched in the valley. The height of the fortress was at least 25 meters, which was very frightening. Moreover, the walls were all made of hard rocks mined from the ground, so one could imagine how sturdy it was. How many magic crystal cannons do we have? Lin Muyu asked. 220 cannons. Wei Chou replied. Do you think that 200 magic crystal cannons can destroy Phoenix Pass? He asked. It will be difficult. Si Kongyao shook her head and said, Brother, look, the outer wall of Phoenix Pass has a total of 3 layers. Our magic crystal cannons can at most penetrate 2 layers. Moreover, the wolf soldiers are well trained and are good at mounted archery and cavalry assaults. Their battle strength is much stronger than Longxi's Black Rock army. Yes, Lin Muyu looked into the distance. On the open area outside the pass, there were densely packed wolf soldiers training. The sound of hooves thundered and dust rose into the sky. The opponent this time was indeed very difficult. Chapter 1166. They're cursing at the top of their lungs, but the people in Phoenix Pass seem to have turned into cowards. Not a single one dares to fight. Damn it! Citizen sat down beside the commander's seat and gulped down the entire pot of water. Who's the commander in Phoenix Pass? Lin Muyu asked. Lin Shuang, a former commander of the Blackstone Empire. You can say that he's from the same family as you. Si Kongyao replied. Kindred, do you think I can persuade him to surrender by appealing to his emotions and reasoning? Forget it. He's Hisong's cousin. His relationship with him is much stronger than yours. You should have said so earlier. Lin Muyu looked at the terrain of Phoenix Pass on the sand table and remained silent. Can we send soldiers over Phoenix Mountain and launch a surprise attack? Sidu Shui asked. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. Half of the wolf soldiers are cavalry. Sending a small number of foot soldiers would be suicide. Let's think of another way. Why don't we try attacking tomorrow? Wei Chou asked. Yes, let's try. The next day, the Longdan army camp quickly attacked Phoenix Pass. However, they retreated in just 2 hours. Wei Chou hugged his helmet and walked into the commander's tent with a gloomy face. No, we can't break in. The magic crystal cannons have already turned the walls into pockmarks, but they still can't collapse. If only Qianfeng's giant flying snakes were here. If a few of them were to attack, I'm afraid Phoenix Pass would be razed to the ground in the blink of an eye. How many people did we lose? 700. 700 people in just a short while? Lin Muyu frowned. We can't continue fighting like this. The morale of the army will be in chaos before we even reach Red Rock City. That's right. Lin Muyu pondered for a moment before raising her head and asking, what is Hisong doing in Red Rock City? He is the valley master of the Wolf Valley. He has always been content with his own territory. Now that he has obtained the strong city of Red Rock City, he spends every day seeking pleasure. He also sends people to search for strong men to sacrifice in order to obtain more wolf soldiers. These wolf soldiers have astonishing battle strength and are born with divine strength. They are also quite bloodthirsty. Once they enter the battlefield, they become like wild beasts. How do they compare to the elites of the Longdan army camp? In terms of individual combat ability, he is superior. Wei Chou said, fortunately, not all the 200,000 wolf soldiers under Hisong are real wolf soldiers. Only about half of them have obtained the secret sacrificial technique of the Wolf Valley and are real wolf soldiers. How many true wolf soldiers does Lin Shuang have in Phoenix Pass? About 20,000. This will be troublesome, Wei Chou said. Milord, forgive me for speaking bluntly. If it is a frontal battle, our army's battle strength is not inferior to the wolf soldiers. But when it comes to defending the city, the wolf soldiers have astonishing arm strength and excellent archery skills. Of the 700 Longdan army camp soldiers that died in battle, most of them were killed by sharp arrows. In a siege battle, we are definitely not a match for the wolf soldiers. Si Kongyao blinked her eyes and said, I am afraid that the news of our arrival at Phoenix Pass will quickly spread to Red Rock City. At that time, if Hisong reinforcements his troops, our chances of victory will be even lower. That's right. Lin Muyu said in a low voice, we must end this battle quickly and take down Phoenix Pass. Situ-san asked. In the afternoon, you will lead 5,000 men and continue to attack the city. Do not attack by force, feign an attack and try to reduce the losses. Is it because I spoke too much? That's right. Wei Chou smiled. Milord, do you have an idea? No idea, but if we continue to attack for a long time without success, Lin Shuang's troops will become arrogant. They will think that our army is tired and lacking in battle strength. This way, perhaps they will be able to take advantage of this. We will attack for 2 days and on the 3rd day, we will break camp and retreat 10 li before setting up camp. Wei Chao's eyes lit up. "Huh? Milord, are you planning to use arrogant tactics?" "That's right, we can only lure Lin Shuang's troops out and exterminate them." Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. "But the key is whether or not Lin Shuang is a smart person. If he is, then it will be difficult." "Milord, don't worry," Wei Chou said. "I have already asked around. Lin Shuang is greedy and ruthless. In the 6 months he has been guarding the Red Cliff province, he has killed soldiers and raped women. Moreover, he has a violent temper. Other than listening to Hisong, he has no other good points, but Hisong seems to have given him an order to defend the city and not leave. Then let's wait and see. Loyalty to Hisong and achievement in killing the enemy. Which of these 2 choices will he choose?" This subordinate understands. 2 days later, the Longdan army camp and Baizhe mercenaries retreated 10 li and set up camp again. They had already shown signs of retreat. In the middle of the night, light snow fell from the sky. It came just in time. The curtain of snow seemed to boost the enemy's courage. There were dense forests on both sides of the official road. Lin Muyu personally led 100,000 elites to lie in ambush on both sides of the road, while Wei Chou led 100,000 people to guard the camp. The world quickly turned pale white. Everything seemed so quiet. If Lin Shuang came, then it would be a great merit. If not, then the 100,000 troops would freeze in the snow for a night. Lin Muyu's move could be said to be a huge gamble. Time passed bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. Everyone seemed a little anxious. Will they really not come? Lu Bai frowned. "Don't talk nonsense, they will definitely come." Si Kongyao glared at him. Lin Muyu squatted in the grass on the snowy ground, looking into the distance. She held the Xianyuan sword in her hand and said, "If they don't come, then I can only forfeit my salary for half a year to comfort the soldiers." Si Kongyao smiled sweetly. "What if they come?" "It's best if they come. We have to make sure that Lin Shuang doesn't return alive. After wiping them out, we will immediately attack Phoenix Pass and use the Dragon Riders and Xingtian army's advantage to break through the city." They waited until the sky was already beginning to brighten, and the snow had already covered their boots, but Lin Shuang still hadn't come. Sidu Sen's hand that was holding the sword was already numb from the cold. That brat Lin Shuang can't be that cowardly, right? If he doesn't even dare to come, then what kind of battle is he going to fight if he's so cowardly? "Don't worry, we're almost there." Lin Muyu suddenly smiled. Big Bro sensed it? N5 li out. Sidu Sen was overjoyed. "All troops, be on guard. Don't take action yet. Wait until the cannons sound from the camp, and then we'll slaughter our way out. No one is allowed to make the first move." Everyone said in a low voice, "Yes." Sure enough, not long after, the sound of hooves could be heard. On the official road in the distance, densely packed cavalry galloped over. There seemed to be about 20,000 cavalrymen, and the rest were infantry. They were marching at an extremely fast speed, majestically. It seemed like Lin Shuang had really gone all out, preparing to deal a fatal blow to the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel elated. She laughed in a low voice and said, "We didn't wait for nothing this night. We actually caught such a big fish. This is great." The faces of the generals were also filled with joy. The enemy's front quickly passed through, heading straight for the main camp. Not long after, the sound of cannons could be heard from the main camp, and then the sound of killing rose into the sky. "They're moving out." Lin Muyu turned around and mounted her horse. In a low voice, she shouted, "Si Kongyao will lead the troops to cover the rear. Situ Sen and Situ Shui will attack from the left and right. Completely surround them for me. Don't let a single one escape." 200,000 soldiers were more than enough to surround 70 to 80,000 soldiers. Lin Muyu personally led the cavalry of the Longdan army camp to attack. Their target was the infantry of the enemy. Instantly, they were like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. They slaughtered their way through as if there was no one there. However, the moment the ambush started, the morale of Lin Shuang's troops had already collapsed. They had no intention to fight at all and fled in all directions. Only the 20,000 wolf soldiers personally led by Lin Shuang were the real elites. They took out their arrows, aimed, and killed hundreds of Wei Chou's cavalry in the blink of an eye. However, Wei Chou was too fast, and they were about to engage in a close combat. In the crowd, Lin Shuang was wearing a dark red armor. The sword in his hand was gleaming coldly, and his body was surrounded by the sacred energy. He roared, "Fight! The wolf soldiers will never surrender." A group of cavalrymen roared in unison. Their faces became very ferocious. Green veins popped up on their faces, and dense hair grew on their skin. Fangs even protruded from their mouths. It was as if they had turned into wild beasts. Indeed, they were like a pack of wolves. So this is the power of sacrifice? Wei Chou raised his hand and shot an arrow, directly piercing the throats of 3 wolf soldiers. He sneered and said, "That's all? Kill them all, don't leave a single one alive." The cavalry of the Longdan army camp charged forward at high speed, and the sound of killing shook the heavens. Although the wolf soldiers were strong, compared to the troops of the Longdan army camp, their well-trained tactics were too messy, and they could not unleash their full power. Their sharp claws could only leave marks on the armor of the soldiers of the Longdan army camp, but they could not pierce through their bodies. On the contrary, their bodies were quickly cut into pieces by the cavalry. Blood quickly spread, and the messy snow was dyed red. After a bloody battle, the 20,000 wolf soldiers refused to retreat and were finally killed. However, most of the infantry were defeated and begged for mercy, becoming prisoners of the Longdan army camp. After daybreak, Wei Chou led a group of cavalry to attack Fenghuang Pass. Xing Tian's army descended from the sky and threw Lin Shuang's head off the city wall. Immediately, the morale of the soldiers in the city was thrown into chaos, and almost without bloodshed, Fenghuang Pass was captured. By noon, the flag of the kingdom of Shang had been replaced by the royal flag of the purple Yinghua flower. However, in the afternoon, the eastern side of Fenghuang Pass had been sealed off. When Song received the news, he led 150,000 soldiers over. In addition, there were also 100,000 soldiers from the Prairie Blazing province, making a total of 250,000. An hour later, the wolf soldiers shot the letter of challenge into the city, and it quickly reached Lin Muyu's hands. She opened the letter of challenge, and the handwriting on it was vigorous and forceful. It seemed to be a letter written by Song himself. "Yuqin traders have invaded, and the heavens are angry and the people are resentful. I heard that the mighty person under me is willing to hunt with me in the Millen Forest, and I hope that you will wash your neck clean before beheading me." Si Kongyao looked at the letter of challenge, and her face flushed red. She stomped her feet in anger. "How dare you?" Lin Muyu glanced at her. "Why are you so angry?" Chapter 1167. Song's army of 250,000 men attacked Fenghuang Pass, but Fenghuang Pass was a strong city and Lin Muyu took it down without shedding a single drop of blood. The fortress was very intact and there was no problem in defending it. Moreover, from the first day, Lin Muyu had already made preparations to defend it. The rations in Fenghuang Pass were enough for 200,000 men to use for 5 days. It was not too late to immediately send a letter to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi to prepare rations from Qianshan City. At dusk, the battle ended and the attacking army gradually dispersed, leaving only the devastated city walls and densely packed corpses. A general success was built on 10,000 bones. In this battle, Song had left at least 10,000 corpses, but it did not shake Phoenix Pass in the slightest. The cold wind blew. Lin Muyu held onto the cold battlements as she looked at the enemy camp in the distance outside the city and said, "It is not a long-term plan to go on like this. Calculating the arrows used today, there should be at least 200,000 to 300,000, right?" At the side, Si Kongyao nodded her head and said, "Only more and no less." "How many arrows do we have left?" "There are still around 500,000 left. In one day we have used almost half." Wei Chou said worriedly, "Tonight, we must go out of the city to clean up the battlefield. At the very least, we must pull back the arrows that were shot." "Not only that," Lin Muyu sighed, "I saw that many arrows were broken after they were shot out. We still need to make new arrows. How many people in the army know how to make arrows? Most of them only have a rough understanding, but there are not many who can make fine arrows. Most of the arrows that we brought were made by the archery masters of the Ministry of War. Wei Chou smiled. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but if the soldiers were to make arrows, the lethality would at least be reduced by half or perhaps even more. Lin Muyu frowned. Yao, are there any local archery masters? Si Kongyao gave a definite answer, saying, the Blackstone Empire has always been militaristic, and many of the people in the prefectural cities rely on the military to make a living. Every prefectural city has at least 100 arrow craftsmen, swordsmiths, and the like. If brother needs them, I will immediately send people to invite these arrow craftsmen over, but the remuneration cannot be low. They are a group of people who make a living by making arrows. No problem. Lin Muyu turned around and said, when I came here, I saw a large bamboo forest on the hillside behind us. This bamboo forest can be cut down and used as tree trunks for arrows. Go and do it, the more the better, the faster the better. Don't worry. Si Kongyao blinked her eyes and said with a smile, an archery master and 2 apprentices can make at least 100 arrows a day. I will invite all the archery masters in the nearby prefectural cities, and they can make at least 200,000 arrows a day for us. Let's give them the payment from Thousand Mountain City's treasury. All right. Si Kongyao turned around and left, while Lin Muyu once again looked into the distance. My lord, are you planning to wear down the morale of Hisong's wolf soldiers? Otherwise, with your personality, you would never adopt a defensive strategy. Wei Chou asked with a burning gaze. Lin Muyu laughed bitterly. That's right, you saw through me. You've seen it too, Wei Chou. The individual strength of the wolf soldiers is just too strong. Previously, Lin Shuang only had 20,000 wolf soldiers, but he was able to wipe out 10,000 of our elites. If Hisong's 80,000 wolf soldiers were to swarm us, I suspect that even if the tens of thousands of cavalry in the Longdan army camp were to win, there wouldn't be many left. Wei Chou said with a faint smile, my lord, you've thought it through. I also think so. It's really unwise to fight against the wolf soldiers. These wolf soldiers are greedy and belligerent. Their strength and speed are far better than ordinary people. Their only shortcoming is their intelligence. If we can keep them busy for a long time and wear out their patience, I'm afraid that these wolf soldiers will collapse on their own. Not only the wolf soldiers, but also Hisong will lose his patience. When Hisong gives the order to retreat, it's time for us to go out of the city to chase after them. That's right. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, now I'm looking forward to the arrival of the Second Corps of Lingdong Province as soon as possible. If the 90,000 armored demons of the demon tribe are here, why should I be afraid of these 80,000 wolf soldiers? Even if the army of armored demons arrives, the first reinforcement will be from Xishan Province, which is relatively close. We still have to rely on ourselves. Wei Chou broke Lin Muyu's fantasy. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. I'm just thinking about it. I don't have a real plan. My lord. Wei Chou suddenly wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Lin Muyu looked at him and asked, what's the matter? I want to ask you a question. Say it, what do you want to ask? Wei Chou took a step back and respectfully cupped his hands, saying, my lord, we have now conquered Xishan Province and Liaishan Province. Soon, we will naturally be able to conquer Hongyan Province and Liaoyuan Province. By then, half of the celestial pole continent will be in our hands. My lord, you have made outstanding contributions and your words in the army carry enormous weight. It can be said that you have the power to overturn the world. My lord, aren't you afraid of being criticized by the old officials in the imperial court? I know the relationship between my lord and Her Highness the Empress, but I still have to warn my lord that you must guard against the heart of a villain. The more power you have, the more angry and intolerable those who want you to step down from the altar will be. Lin Muyu was startled and said, Wei Chou, you mean those old officials in Lanyan City? I'm not worried about this. Divine Marquis Zheng Yifan is now loyal to Xiao Yin, so he shouldn't set me up. But there are others. Among the 12 assistant ministers of the 6 departments, how many of them are really on your side? Although my lord has a godlike status and reputation in the army, in the eyes of those scheming people, you are just a boorish man who is good at fighting. After all, my lord is now a mortal and no longer a god. You need to consider the aftermath of all this. A lot of snow had fallen on Wei Chao's shoulders, and he stood majestically in the snow like a statue. He looked at Lin Muyu with clear eyes and said, "Recently, the informants I have arranged in Lanyan City have been sending back news. There is negative news about my lord and General Feng in Lanyan City, such as massacring the civilians of the celestial pole continent, privately hoarding mansions, cultivating their own forces in the army, and so on. We must guard against these people. If we seize the whole world, I also don't want it to fall into the hands of those despicable and shameless people. I also don't want a famous general like my lord to suffer injustice." "That won't happen." Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, "Good brother, don't think so much. Think about it, Xiao Yin and Xiao Shi are both my wives, Suyu is Xiao Yin's little aunt, and Qin Lian is Ayan's father. Almost all of Lanyan City belongs to us. No matter how those despicable people overturn the rivers and seas, they will never overturn the truth." Wei Chou nodded heavily and said, "I am the commander of the Longdan army camp, and the 20 generals who are in charge of tens of thousands of soldiers are all old generals who have followed my lord for many years. This time, I will never give up my military power. If anyone wants to hurt my lord, I will use the strongest army in the world to exterminate their whole family." Lin Muyu's eyes couldn't help but warm up. She turned around and sat on the cold battlement, holding her head. She felt so uncomfortable that tears almost fell down. "Your Excellency, what's wrong with you?" Wei Chou was stunned. Lin Muyu looked up at the flying snow in the sky and said, "Wei Chou, I hope the way of heaven still exists. Otherwise, if you and I are both mortals for the rest of our lives, I will order you to be killed when we return to Lanyan City." Wei Chou was silent, but he seemed to have guessed that Lin Muyu would say such a thing. He said softly, "Your Excellency, are you worried that I will eventually lead to a disaster because of my military power?" "Yes." Lin Muyu looked at him indifferently and said, "In the future, it will be the Congress that will be in charge of the world in Lanyan City. The Congress will never tolerate people like you. In order to avoid disaster, I can only kill you. So don't force me, Wei Chou. When that day comes, let go of your military power, let go of everything. You and I, as brothers, will leave this trouble." Wei Chou knelt on the ground with one knee firmly, tears welling up in his eyes. "I just don't want to see a famous general like you suffer injustice. I am just a pawn on your chessboard. I never thought that your Excellency would treat me as a brother." "No, you have always been. You have been since we were in the Eagle's Nest camp. You are the most trustworthy brother." Lin Muyu helped him up and said, "Remember, don't be obsessed with power and wealth. They will devour you like a whirlpool. In the future, when we succeed, you and I, plus Feng Jixing and Situ Sen, will take our families and leave this whirlpool of power. There are many places in the world where we, Xiao Yao, can live freely." "Yes, thank you, Your Excellency." Wei Chou gritted his teeth and said, "I, Wei Chou, will never hold a military power for myself. I will be loyal to the Empire and to our friendship for the rest of my life." "Don't say so much. Situ Sen has just ordered the dead horses to be roasted. Come in and drink with me to warm up. It's spring, but it's still so cold." "Yes, it's really cold." On the 18th of January, a row of light cavalry appeared in the snow, holding the purple Yinghua imperial flag. Amidst the wind, a winged person fluttered down and chattered something. The leader of the cavalry did not say much. He took out a letter from his bosom and said, "Please deliver this to Commander Feng Jixing. The army will arrive after nightfall." The winged person hid the letter and flew away. In Shiping Prefecture, Feng Jixing, who had received the letter, could not help but laugh happily. "Has Qianfeng arrived?" Xiangyu asked. Feng Jixing handed the letter to Xiangyu. Xiangyu glanced at it and said, "It is indeed Qianfeng's handwriting, but, Commander, are you sure it is not forged?" "It must be Qianfeng's handwriting." Look at how he addressed Xianxia. For words, lightning-throwing Tower Mao, are enough to prove everything. Why? Because you once scolded Qianfeng like this, and Qianfeng, that dumb roe deer, only knew what it meant 8 years later when he submitted to the empire. At that time, he still thought that you was praising him for his military strategy. Send the 3 armies and have a good rest. Prepare for the decisive battle with Yangshang tomorrow morning. Yes, Your Excellency. Chapter 1168. On the 19th of January, the intermittent snowfall stopped once again, and the warm sun shone on the land. The sound of war drums reverberated across Jianlongjuan. This fertile land had become the best battlefield. The Yangshang army had always been known for its cavalry's prowess, and Qianfeng was also very confident in the Qin army's positional warfare. They had already set up their formation before dawn. Looking from Shiping City, the fertile land to the east was densely packed with people. The violet flower imperial flag and the dark blue uniforms of the empire's soldiers formed a sea of blue. In the distance, the red uniforms of the Yangshang army looked like they were dyed with blood. In terms of numbers, the Shang army still had the absolute advantage. More than 400,000 people against Qianfeng's 200,000 people naturally had the upper hand. However, there were still more than 100,000 people under Feng Jixing in the city. Once they left the city, the outcome would be hard to predict. Who's Qianfeng's vanguard? They've already set up their formation. Xiang Yu frowned. It's Qin Xiaoli, the commander of Qihai City's garrison. Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and smiled. Qin Xiaoli was originally a general of the Tang family. She's like a snow wolf in the north, good at seizing opportunities and tearing open the enemy's flaws with fierce attacks. Just wait and see. The vanguard of the Yangshang army is Han Yuan's Eastcom army. They're definitely not Qin Xiaoli's match. Is that so? Xiang Yu declined to comment. When do we attack? Don't be anxious. Let's first grind down the morale of the Shang army and let everyone have a good rest. We'll talk in the afternoon. This battle won't end in a day or two. All right. 5 minutes later, the war drums boomed. The vanguard of both sides began to charge at each other. Qin Xiaoli didn't personally lead the charge. Instead, she raised her sword, and the Kiliarchs behind her led the charge. The infantry and cavalry slowly advanced in a phalanx formation. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the infantry was mostly made up of heavy shields, spears, and bows. There were about 20,000 of them in the center, while the cavalry was divided into 2 groups, waiting to move out. On the other hand, Han Yuan's battle strategy was much simpler. The cavalry charged brainlessly. One lost. Feng Jixing laughed. Guan Xing and Lin Sun laughed as well. Most of the commanders in the Shang army were people with high cultivation and reputation, and not those who truly knew how to use troops. This was the fatal flaw of the Shang army. Just as expected, when the 50,000 cavalrymen of the Shang army charged into the shield formation and crashed into each other, wantonly slaughtering Qin Xiaoli's infantry, the cavalrymen that Qin Xiaoli had stationed on the flanks began to pick up speed. Like a gale sweeping away leaves, they swept through the chaotic enemy cavalry formation, and for a moment, the sounds of slaughter rose to the heavens. On one side, there was chaos and there was no direction, while on the other side, there was order and formation. Even if there was a great disparity in the strength of both sides, the result was still determined. Tactics were always the most important part of a war. Qin Xiaoli doesn't seem to have the desire to initiate a battle. Lin Sun said, his square formation hasn't moved too much forward. Instead, the infantry of the Shang army has unknowingly moved 3 li forward. This is the brilliance of Qin Xiaoli and Qianfeng. Feng Jixing laughed. The heavy infantry of the Shang army are just ordinary people, but their shields, armors, and weapons add up to 100 jin. If an ordinary person carries 100 jin of equipment and moves 3 li, their stamina will be more or less exhausted. But the cavalrymen are different. Look at the southeast corner. Qianfeng's 10,000 elite demon cavalrymen are ready to attack. Lin Sun took a closer look and immediately understood. Which one of the commanders on the battlefield wasn't a famous general? Not long after, the 80,000 heavy infantry of the Shang army arrived at the battlefield, but before they could complete their formation, the sounds of killing could be heard from afar. Qian Feng had already ordered the 10,000 elite demon cavalrymen and 5,000 armor demons to charge. Speed against slowness. In an instant, the 80,000 heavy infantry were smashed into pieces by the demon phalanx, which was far fewer in number than them. How could there be any defensive formation? They were completely reduced to being slaughtered. Commander Han Yuan, how do you use your troops? On the viewing platform of the Kingdom of Shang, Yang Shang asked indifferently. Han Yuan's face was ashen. Your Majesty, At the side, Sun Shi said, Your Majesty, the East Com army will definitely be defeated in less than 2 hours. What should we do now? Yang Shang was somewhat anxious. Sun Shi smiled faintly. Those so-called gods were originally the elites under Qian Feng. To defeat them, we can only rely on Your Majesty's most elite army. You mean the Divine Feather Battalion? Yes, Your Majesty, please send out the Divine Feather Battalion. Only the Divine Feather Battalion can turn the situation around. All right. Yang Shang took a deep breath. Duo La go. Don't disappoint me. Yes. Duo La mounted his horse, and after giving the order, the 40,000 Divine Feather Battalion cavalry charged out like a whirlwind. As for the Qin army, Qin Yan led the national army in a charge to protect the demon army from being destroyed by the Divine Feather Battalion. Time trickled by, and soon it was close to noon. The sounds of killing could be heard on Longyuan, and everyone could even faintly smell the stench of blood coming from the battlefield. On the city wall, the generals looked at the battle situation in the distance. Xiang Yu frowned and said, The Divine Feather Battalion has already attacked. If we continue to wait, Qin Yan's national army will be completely annihilated. Feng Jixing nodded. Tangjin has also launched an attack, and the Divine Feather Battalion is being held back. Pass down the order, leave 5,000 men to defend the city, and the rest will follow me to charge at the Shang army's center. Not long after, the majestic Imperial Army cavalry charged out of the city and went straight for the shaken Shang army. Furthermore, the Imperial Army was waiting for the exhausted, so one could imagine how elite they were. For a moment, the battlefield was in a stalemate, but the addition of Feng Jixing's troops caused a ripple, and the sounds of killing became even more intense. Dugu Xian's 150,000 Thunder Spirit army faced Feng Jixing. Longyuan was in a complete mess, and hundreds of thousands of soldiers were engaged in a fierce battle. Corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed like a river. The snow and grass were covered with blood, and broken weapons and ownerless warhorses were everywhere. The artillery of both sides had been exhausted, and now they could only fight with their flesh and blood. Even the famous generals of the Qin Empire gradually lost control of their formation, and the battle turned from a positional battle into a chaotic battle. What was left was the judgment of fate, and no one knew who was the real winner. The fierce battle continued, and the people on the battlefield rushed back and forth. After a whole night, the fighting still didn't stop. Feng Jixing even passed down the order for the 3 armies to take turns to rest and fight in a chaotic battle. Many soldiers retreated 3 miles back and slept for 2 hours. After eating food and drinking water, they immediately grabbed their bloody weapons and rushed to the battlefield. Neither side was willing to retreat even half a step. Seeing the corpses everywhere on Longyuan, the formation of the armies became chaotic, and the 2 armies were fighting each other everywhere. In the blink of an eye, it was night again, and it was already the second day of the fierce battle. The 2 sides stopped fighting for 6 hours. Before the sun rose, they started fighting again. Feng Jixing's battle robe was already dyed red with blood. He didn't know how many times he had escaped the pursuit of the 2 devil gods, Longxi and Filei, through the cover of the tomes of Arcane. The Imperial Guards suffered heavy casualties, and there were at least thousands of soldiers who died under the hands of the 2 devil gods. But this was war, and whoever lost first would lose the control of Xishan province. In the dark night, the torches were almost all extinguished. Feng Jixing's face was covered with blood. He slowly pulled out the red phoenix saber, and the saber light illuminated the people nearby. He saw that Qian Feng, Qin Yan, Tang Zhen, and the others were also in a difficult situation. Their armors were broken, and they were covered with blood. Moreover, each of them had suffered injuries of different degrees. In such a fierce battle, no one could be uninjured. "How many people do we have left?" Feng Jixing asked. "Less than half," Qian Feng said. "It doesn't matter, the Shang army's losses are even greater." Feng Jixing's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. He raised his saber and shouted, "The enemy is 2 miles away, kill them, fight to the end." Everyone raised their weapons and shouted, "Fight to the end." If the Grim Reaper saw this scene, he would definitely be very happy, because the ground was filled with souls and dead people. Seeing that Longyuan had become purgatory on earth, a battlefield of slaughter. On the second night of the fierce battle, the Shang army's strength was instantly reduced by more than half. On the third day, the Shang army began to collapse. Facing the iron-blooded army commanded by Feng Jixing and Qian Feng, the Tianju Corps fled, and more than 100,000 soldiers became deserters. How could the remaining nearly 100,000 soldiers be a match for the Qin army? At noon, Yangshang ordered a retreat, and they retreated to Tianji City. After fighting for 3 days, they finally won. The Qin army rested where they were, and almost everyone had a feeling as if they had escaped from purgatory. Those who were able to survive this battle were all very lucky. On the first day of the defeat, Yangshang killed 27 senior generals while retreating. On the second day, Yangshang ordered 54 civil officials to be killed. On the third day, Yangshang arrived at Tianji City and killed 288 civil and military officials. The news of the defeat had spread in Tianji province, and also in the capital of the Kingdom of Shang. Almost everyone knew that the Emperor Shang's army had suffered a crushing defeat. Although the government posted an announcement saying that the opponents had been severely injured, everyone knew that Feng Jixing and Qian Feng of the Qin Empire were in Shiping Prefecture, and they were only slightly injured. On the contrary, the Shang army lost 3 commanders, 37 captaincy, and almost all the senior generals were killed in the battle. The rest were killed by Yangshang, who was furious, for the crime of incompetence. The worst rumor was that the kingdom of Shang was completely divided. From the east came the news that Qin Yu had reascended to the throne in Laohan City. The whole celestial empire had broken away from the control of the kingdom of Shang and established a new country. The world was completely divided into 3 parts. Among them, the kingdom of Shang was in decline, and the Qin state was the strongest. The Battle of Longyuan was the most tragic battle of the Qin Empire. Qian Feng and Feng Jixing had a total of 350,000 troops. After the Battle of Longyuan, there were less than 160,000 left. While the Shang army was heavily injured, they were also heavily injured. After all, most of the soldiers of the Kingdom of Shang were new recruits, and so were the troops of Shiping Prefecture. They were poorly trained. If it weren't for the lack of training of the opponents, perhaps Feng Jixing and Qian Feng would have been annihilated. Chapter 1169. After 2 whole days, the corpse collection team still hadn't completed their task of cleaning up the battlefield. However, most of the weapons and armors had been transported into the city. After all, the Shang army was only defeated, but not dead. Shiping Prefecture, Feng Jixing was overseeing things. His right arm was wrapped in gauze, and his face was a little pale. Probably because he had lost too much blood, even the pen he was holding was trembling. He signed the words Feng Jixing on the document from the Military Supply Department. "Deputy Commander, you should rest more," Tang Zhen said in a low voice. "How can I be in the mood to rest?" Feng Jixing laughed bitterly and said, "There are still hundreds of thousands of corpses outside the city that haven't been buried. Although loyal bones are buried everywhere, we should at least collect the corpses of the fallen warriors with dignity, right? Have the scouts returned? Has the Shang army made a move? Also, has there been any movement from Qin Yu's troops?" Qin Yan cupped his fists and said, reporting to Deputy Commander, "After this battle, less than half of Yangshang's 550,000 troops remain. Qin Yu has already fled to Scorching Han City with more than 100,000 troops from the Heavens and Corps. Yangshang only has 100,000 troops from the Divine Feather Battalion, East Com Corps and Thunder Soul Corps. According to the scouts' report, these troops have already left Xishan Province and are stationed at the border of Tianji Province. For the time being, Yangshang will not be able to fight again. Instead, we need to be wary of Qin Yu. Qin Yu has made a move? Not for the time being. However, it is said that a day ago, Qin Yu announced the restoration of the Celestial Empire in Scorching Han City. Qin Yu proclaimed himself as the emperor and appointed Wei Qiang as the marshal, Zhou Binlong and Huang Wanxin as the vice-marshals. He has also reorganized the major corps. Today, the Celestial Empire has at least 800,000 troops. Compared to Yangshang, the Celestial Empire is our biggest enemy. Feng Jixing nodded and sighed. In a short time, Qin Yu will certainly not declare war on us. He knows better than anyone how elite the Qin Empire's army is. Don't worry. Beside him, Zhang Wei said, Commander, we have mobilized all the tailors in Shiping City and the nearby commoners to sew the royal flags for the fallen soldiers. However, there are only 70,000 of them. The cloth and paint are too scarce. Use the supplies from the military supply department. Prepare them for me. Feng Jixing's gaze turned cold. They were originally young farmers, hunters, and craftsmen who joined the army to serve the nation under the Empress's edict. Now that they have died in battle in a foreign land, if we, who are still alive, don't have a royal flag to bury their bodies with, how can we, who are still alive, face them after we die? Is it just because I'm the deputy commander and you're the deputy commander? Zhang Wei cupped his fists and said, Yes, I will do my best to supervise. Feng Jixing looked at Chen Xiaoli again and said, General Chen, you must complete the collection of the corpses as soon as possible. Fortunately, the weather is cold and the corpses won't rot. However, it's hard to guarantee that the wolves in the mountains won't come out to hunt during winter. I don't want the corpses of any of the Empire's martyrs to become food for hungry wolves. Chen Xiaoli bowed and said, I have already sent people to guard the corpses day and night and drive away the wild beasts. Deputy Commander, please don't worry. However, Deputy Commander, a total of 200,000 soldiers have died in this battle. Where do you plan to bury them? Bury them under the Green Mountains at the edge of Jianlong Plain. Bury their corpses together according to the state funeral etiquette. Yes, Marshal. Please give me another 10,000 men and horses to speed up the construction of the tombs. Feng Jixing looked at the generals and said, Why isn't everyone saying anything? Qin Yong and Qian Feng were silent. After a while, Qian Feng said, This is the most tragic battle I've ever experienced in my life. Even now, my stomach is still twitching. When I close my eyes, it's as if I can see the desperate scene of the soldiers. Lin Sun sat there blankly with a blank gaze. He said, This battle has really scared me. I'm even tired of fighting. Deputy Commander, you won't look down on me, right? Why would I? Feng Jixing relaxed his brows and said, It's not only you guys. I'm the same. I'm also human. So many people died in battle. The people beside me fell one by one and were badly mutilated. Last night, I also rested for a while and kept having the same nightmare. They were all the wronged souls of those who died in battle, so I was so scared that I didn't dare to sleep anymore. Looking at the dispirited looks of the generals, Feng Jixing smiled and said, Cheer up. In this battle, the souls of 200,000 brave warriors established the supreme power of the Qin Empire in the Celestial Pole. They didn't die in vain. Her Highness Yin will also confer them the title of martyrs. Their names will all be engraved on the nation-guarding monument. Everyone nodded their heads in delight. Qin Yan said, I've just received Yu's letter. After Her Highness Yin and Princess she learned of the bloody battle in Jianlong Plain, they rushed over overnight. They will probably arrive in a day. Her Highness the Empress wants to personally hold a funeral for the soldiers who died in battle. Feng Jixing smiled slightly. Send Yu's letter to Lin General and tell him that the West Mountain Province has been defended. Let him concentrate on cleaning up the remnant enemies in the southeast. Yes. Qin Yen cupped his fists and then said, "But Deputy Commander, Big Brother's side isn't some crippled enemy. That's the 300,000 elites He Song commands. Big Brother's days are definitely not going to be too easy. Don't worry. You will win. He is more powerful than any of us." Feng Jixing smiled playfully. "Much more powerful." Fenghuang Pass. Lin Muyu had led the Longdan army camp to guard this place for close to 7 days. He Song's wolf soldiers had attacked almost every day but were still unable to achieve any success. Below Fenghuang Pass, corpses were piled up. He Song almost threw down thousands of corpses every day. Today, they only lost 3,000 people in battle before retreating. In the meeting hall, Wei Chou sat down and said, "It seems that He Song has lost his patience." "How many wolf soldiers have been lost? Have they been calculated?" Lin Muyu asked. "Approximately 10,000. In that case, He Song still has 70,000 wolf soldiers left." Lin Muyu muttered to herself before saying, "In these 1 or 2 days, He Song will definitely give the order to retreat. Pass down the order to let everyone have a good rest. Every meal is to be full and be prepared to attack at any time." Situ Sin narrowed his eyes and smiled. "How does Lin General intend to fight this battle?" Currently, He Song still has close to 200,000 elite soldiers in his hands. They are exhausted and their morale is declining. They can no longer be considered elite. Lin Muyu looked at the sand table and said, "Both the inside and outside of Mi Lin are plains. The trees in Mi Lin are also very sparse. It is very suitable for field operations. Our Longdan army camp and Baizhe mercenaries have a total of nearly 100,000 elite cavalry. This time, it is up to these cavalry to render meritorious service." Si Kongyao was startled. "How does brother plan to fight?" "As long as He Song retreats, immediately send out cavalry to chase after him. Wave the flag and shout that the wolf soldiers have been defeated, disrupting their morale. All 100,000 cavalry will go out of the city and chase after them. Bring along magic crystal crossbows. Wherever He Song's wolf soldiers escape to, we will chase after them until they are completely annihilated." Lin Muyu's eyes were cold. "If we don't destroy He Song's wolf soldiers, they will become a big problem for us sooner or later." Brother is right. The wolf soldiers are cruel and have the possibility of ascending to the demon god. So, it is best to annihilate them as soon as possible. However, if it is just cavalry, I am afraid that we cannot destroy all of He Song's troops. So, Yao, you and I, together with the 2 generals, Wei Chou and Sun Shui, will lead the cavalry to pursue and kill them. As for Lu Bai, you will lead the remaining 200,000 infantry soldiers to attack and kill He Song's remaining troops as quickly as possible. Kill them or capture them. After you have achieved meritorious service, I will ask Xiao Yin for your contribution and give you a 2nd-rank military rank." Lu Bai immediately knelt down. "Thank you, sir. I will not let you down." "Go and make the arrangements." "Yes." Late at night, the cold wind was blowing, but the camp of He Song's wolf soldiers was noisy. The transportation of supplies and the neighing of war horses mixed together. They had finally decided to retreat. The rations they had brought from Red Rock City were almost exhausted. If they did not retreat now, the wolf soldiers would eat them alive. More importantly, the wolf soldiers' patience had run out. Phoenix Pass had been attacked for a long time, and the wolf soldiers had no other choice but to retreat. The cold wind carried snowflakes on his armor. He Song was dressed in a red battle robe and riding a fine horse. His eyes were cold as he walked in the middle of the army. He frowned and said in a low voice, "Lower your voice, don't alarm the enemy in Phoenix Pass. If you attract Lin Muyu's attention, no one will have a good ending." "Yes, Commander." A group of guard camp soldiers followed closely behind. A black-cloaked strategist rode over and said in a low voice, "Commander, we still need to be careful. The army's retreat has caused quite a commotion, and Lin Muyu has dragon riders under him. The moment they discover us, they will definitely ambush us. We need to leave a battalion to cover the rear." "I know. I have already left 20,000 infantry of the 2nd Battalion to cover the rear of the camp." 20,000 infantry? The strategist was taken aback. Lin Muyu's armored cavalry is an elite force. Can 20,000 infantry really hold them off? Then what else do you want? Have my 70,000 wolf soldiers stay behind to cover the rear? No, that's not what I mean. It's just that, Commander, please leave 20,000 infantry of the 3rd Battalion to cover the rear. Otherwise, they will not be able to hold Lin Muyu back. If he sees through our retreat, I'm afraid his pursuers will be here in the blink of an eye. We'll do as you say. Thank you, Commander. Above the forest, 2 huge figures flew past. It was the dragon riders under the command of the Longdan army camp. Those bastards have finally retreated. Lin Muyu was a little agitated. He quickly slapped the table and said, "Attack immediately." Si Kongyao, Sidusun, Wei Chou, Fengxi and the others all cupped their fists, then grabbed their weapons and followed Lin Muyu out of the meeting hall. The cavalry had already gathered in Guanxi and Guanyi. 100,000 cavalry were ready and waiting for the order. The war drums thundered, and the 8 gates of Phoenix Pass opened at the same time. Nearly 10 cavalrymen filed out of the pass side by side. The speed at which they set out was quite fast, and in the blink of an eye, they had gathered outside the pass in a dense black mass. Lin Muyu personally supervised the battle. She carried the Xinyuan sword and rode on the treading in snow warhorse. She extended her spiritual pulse technique and discovered the 40,000 infantrymen at the back of the enemy's camp. She smiled and said, "Pass down my order. All the steel cavalry will circle around the enemy's camp from the north and attack Hisong's wolf soldiers from the north of Milin." Chapter 1170. Hisong would never have thought that Lin Muyu could bypass the army at the rear with the mobility of the iron cavalry and go straight to the main force of the wolf soldiers. In the dark night, it was pitch black everywhere in the forest. Only the faint roar of the dragon came from the air, which made people shudder. Everyone knew that there were no dragon riders among the 200,000 wolf soldiers. Once they heard the roar of the dragon, it could only mean that the Longdan army camp had come. At the rear of the main force of the wolf army was a group of 10,000 light cavalry. Originally, the speed of the light cavalry should have been very fast, but the grass had been cut off 2 days ago, and the fertile land was covered in snow. In fact, the wolf army had not eaten for 2 days, so how could they have the strength to run? From the rear, there was a continuous dense and heavy sound of hooves. From the sound of the hooves stepping on the snow, it could be judged that they were all heavy cavalry. Otherwise, the sound would not be so heavy. Captain C, who was in charge of the rear, was livid. He raised the spear in his hand and said, "Prepare for battle. They are coming." As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly there was a blue light in the dark night sky. It was the magic crystal crossbow. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The magic crystal crossbow quickly fell into the group of wolf soldiers and exploded in the blink of an eye, like beautiful blue flowers blooming. The amazing destructive power engulfed the bodies of the wolf soldiers and the horses, illuminated the sky, and set the surrounding trees on fire, providing excellent illumination for the army of the Qin Empire. The enemy was in the light while they were in the dark. This was the best fighting environment. Clang. The golden light was very dazzling in the night sky. It was Lin Muyu's Xinyuan sword. Without saying a word, he spurred his horse and charged straight over. Sidusun, Si Kongyao, and the others also spurred their horses and galloped over. Groups of iron cavalries quickly killed the light cavalries of the wolf soldiers. In close combat, the light cavalries were no match for them at all. They could only be killed. The army swept over like a whirlwind, killing 10,000 light cavalries. Moreover, Lin Muyu did not need a second cavalry attack at all. He pointed his sword forward and led the Longdan army camp to continue to chase and kill. As for the remaining enemies in the rear, he left it to Liu Bai to deal with. Lin Muyu's strategy was to bite the tail of the wolf soldiers so that they wouldn't dare to turn back and couldn't turn back. This was Lin Muyu's strategy, and it was as if his lifeline had been grabbed. He was already terrified, and his thoughts were all seen through by his opponent. Hisong knew that he would definitely die if he turned back and fought, but if he kept running forward, he might have a way out. It was also because of this that Lin Muyu led 100,000 iron cavalries to gallop forward at a very small cost, as if he was a whale devouring the entire Red Rock province. At daybreak, the mountains and plains for hundreds of miles were covered with the corpses of the wolf soldiers, but the chase did not stop. Xianxia, who was exhausted from running for his life, was completely terrified. He knew that Lin Muyu would definitely not let him go. Although Xianxia used to be the valley master of the Wolf Valley and had astonishing strength, he was now only at the Holy King realm, while Lin Muyu was at the Holy Heaven realm. If he encountered Lin Muyu, he would die in 3 moves. Lin Muyu could not tolerate him. Amidst the hurried galloping of horses, Xianxia looked up at the sky and started cursing, "Damned heavens, you gave Filet, Jin Chong and Longxi demon bodies, but why are you so harsh on me? Is it not enough that I sacrificed 100,000 lives in Red Rock City to sacrifice my wolf soul? If I, Xianxia, am not fit to be a demon, then what right do Filet and Jin Chong have?" However, heaven's will could not be defied. A captaincy, whose sword was stained with blood, rushed over and said in a low voice, "Commander, we can't run anymore. If we keep retreating, we will lose without even fighting." "What do you mean?" Xianxia said coldly, "Do you think we have a chance of defeating Lin Muyu if we turn around and fight now? But at least we will die for the Empire. We won't die so pitifully. Commander, this lowly general requests a battle." "Pa," Xianxia sneered, "who are you going to die for? Whose empire is this? Are you going to die for Xianxia? Do you think Xianxia cares about an ant like you?" This lowly general, captaincy was speechless. "Goddamn Lin Muyu." Xianxia raised his head and looked into the distance. "Despicable scum, lowly scum, using petty tricks to drag down my 200,000 wolf soldiers. Despicable and shameless." Captaincy said, "Commander, are we really not going to fight?" "Fight." Xianxia said indifferently, "I will lead the central army and continue to retreat. Pass the order to the left and right armies with 15,000 soldiers each. 30,000 wolf soldiers will intercept Lin Muyu at the canyon behind and kill them." "Yes." At noon, 30,000 exhausted wolf soldiers gathered in the valley. They dismounted from their horses and chewed on tasteless dry rations. They drank water from melted snow. Their faces were filled with fatigue. After running continuously for a night, the warhorses could no longer run. Many of the thoroughbred warhorses were even exhausted to death. Even if there was a battle, it was estimated that the cavalry would not be able to be used. "Forget it, let them go, these warhorses can't fight anymore." Captaincy murmured, "Pass the order down, everyone fight on foot and prepare to meet Lin Muyu's army. They will be here soon." "Yes." Everyone put away their rations, pulled out their swords and spears, and formed a square formation to wait for their pursuers. At the entrance of the valley, the sound of horses' hooves rumbled. The first thing that appeared in everyone's sight was the Great Qin imperial flag with purple patterns and a dark blue background, followed by the Longdan army camp's flag embroidered with a dragon pattern. War horses snorted and heavily armored cavalry appeared in the valley. Lin Muyu's cavalry was also very tired. The war horses dragged the heavy soldiers for 100 li, even 1,000 li horse could not bear it. At the front of the army, Lin Muyu was wearing a white imperial forest armor. She dismounted and led the treading snow warhorse into the valley step by step. The soldiers behind her also dismounted. Wei Chou asked, "Sir, are we going to fight with them as infantry?" "No, pass the order for the entire army to dismount and let the warhorses rest for the time it takes for a joss stick to burn. Then we will mount and charge. We must finish off the tens of thousands of enemies in the valley within 2 hours." Yes. Lin Muyu had never been a pragmatic person. He only knew that the cavalry had a natural advantage over the infantry. He would never let his soldiers give up their advantage to face the enemy. That would be the performance of a stupid commander. On the contrary, the wolf soldiers in the valley were all stunned. They did not know what the Longdan army camp was planning. They only knew that their troops were increasing and covering the mountains and plains. It was impossible to escape. The time it took for a joss stick to burn passed very quickly. Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse. He held the Xianyuan sword and said, "Get on the horse and prepare to charge." The distance between the two sides was 500 meters, which was enough for the warhorses to accelerate to the speed of the charge. Once the warhorses charged the cavalry, the heavy cavalry was simply a nightmare for the infantry. Moreover, the enemy was a group of wolf soldiers who only had swords and spears. Wolf soldiers had always been known for their cruelty and speed, but in the face of the absolute defense of the heavy cavalry, their sharp claws and speed became extremely weak. As He-Song had said, no matter how good He-Song was at using troops, perhaps the 100,000 wolf soldiers would be a nightmare for the Longdan army camp. Unfortunately, He-Song was not good at using troops. Instead, he was easily defeated by Lin Muyu at Phoenix Pass with a little trick. Situ Sun raised his sword and rushed out with Lin Muyu. The rumbling of horse hooves shook the valley, and a blue ocean quickly drowned out the wolf army's phalanx that was growing smaller and smaller. The charge of the warhorses and the swift assassination of the cavalry had completely become the wolf army's nightmare. The 30,000 infantry did not seem to be fighting, but more like they were using their lives to cover He-Song's escape. No more, no less. After a full 2 hours, the wolf soldiers in the valley had all turned into corpses. The mountains were covered with corpses, and the smell of blood filled the air. Continue to attack. Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse. He said, "Take off your armor and reduce the weight of the warhorses. Throw away the spears and only keep the swords to kill the enemy." Everyone took off their armor. Desperate times call for desperate measures. In order to chase after He-Song, this great enemy, Lin Muyu was also unscrupulous. The next evening, after killing countless wolf soldiers along the way, they were already less than 100 miles away from Red Rock City. They could even faintly see He-Song's commander's flag. "Stop and rest for 10 minutes. After that, we will kill He-Song in one go." Lin Muyu dismounted and found that the treading snow warhorse was already foaming at the mouth. The energy of a mount had been exhausted to the limit. If even treading snow was in such a state, there was no need to mention the other warhorses. More than half of the warhorses in the Longdan army camp were already lying on the ground from exhaustion. Thus, less than 10,000 people had followed Lin Muyu all the way here, and all of them were riding on high-quality warhorses. While the warhorses were resting, the group ate some dried meat and continued the chase. Along the way, there were wolf soldiers who could not run, and they were all killed. When they arrived at Red Rock City, they found that He-Song had already led a small group of people into the city. "Damn it, what a pity!" Fengshi sighed. "Red Rock City's defenses must be weak. Set up camp outside and try to break into the city tomorrow." Lin Muyu said. "Yes." "Wait a minute." Si Kong Yao suddenly squinted her eyes and looked at the city. "Brother Yu, what do you think that is? There seems to be someone waving a torch on the city wall." "I'll go take a look." Lin Muyu rode straight to the city wall and saw a man wearing the armor of a general of the Shang army laughing. This general, Song Liangqing, has been waiting for Lin General for a long time. "I believe that Lin General is here for this treasure. This general will give it to you." Shua. A black object was thrown down from the city wall and rolled on the snowy ground. With the help of the Xianyuan sword's light, Lin Muyu was shocked. It was He-Song's head. "You killed He-Song?" he asked in shock. Song Liangqing smiled. "He-Song is a defeated general. Almost all the wolf soldiers were killed. When he is brought to Emperor Shang, he will be sentenced to death. On the other hand, Lin General, you have traveled a long way to Red Rock City. This general has prepared a gift for Lin General." "Gift?" "Yes." Song Liangqing laughed. "Beat the drums." On the city wall, the drums were beating loudly. Countless archers appeared by the city wall and fired a volley of arrows at Lin Muyu. At the same time, torches appeared in the forest far away. In the blink of an eye, they connected to each other. Oh no, Lin Muyu felt a sharp pain in his heart. The hunter had become someone else's prey. "Yao, pass the order to retreat. The faster the better." He hurriedly turned around and ordered. Si Kongyao's face was filled with panic. At this time, the Longdan army camp was already exhausted. How could they be a match for Song Liangqing's elite troops? However, what Si Kongyao could not understand was why Song Liangqing would appear in Red Rock City when he was guarding the border between Red Rock Province and the Celestial Empire. There was only one answer. Qinyu was 2,000 miles away from the Longdan army camp. How powerful was this person? Chapter 1171. On the city wall, Song Liangqing laughed out loud. Lin General, there's no need to run. You can't run away. I, Song Liangqing, have been ordered by Emperor Shang to lead 100,000 troops and have been waiting here for a long time just to welcome you. Drums were beating loudly all around them. There were sporadic swaying torches in the fertile fields in the distance. Song Liangqing was not lying. There were definitely 100,000 troops. Although most of them were infantrymen, the people in the Longdan army camp had not slept for 3 consecutive days. They had long reached their physical limits, and their warhorses could not move anymore. The appearance of the 100,000 enemy troops was like a nightmare. With a neigh, the treading-in snow warhorse lost its front hooves and fell heavily in the dark snow. Si Kongyao hurried forward. Brother Yu, are you okay? I'm fine. Lin Muyu stood up from the muddy snow in a sorry state. She said, Yao, quick, order the 3 armies to retreat and meet up with Liu Bai's troops. Takshu, Lin Muyu looked at Takshu, who was struggling on the ground. She was already foaming at the mouth. Forget it. Go to where you should be. Don't get caught. Lin Muyu helped her to stand up. She cut the reins and patted Takshu's neck. Her face was full of desolation. She said, I didn't expect it to be time for me to release horses so soon. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. In the dark, Si Kongyao brought a group of people with her. They were all cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp. However, all of them had abandoned their warhorses. They were holding shiny steel sabers, and their faces were full of blood and exhaustion. Si Kongyao said, Brother, quickly retreat. Even if we become infantrymen, we still have at least 5,000 soldiers here. We'll protect you and rush out. Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword and said, Let's rush out together. By the way, where is Su Jintao's division? Do not know. The night is too dark and quite a number of people were separated. Just received Yu's letter that Wei Chou and Su Jintao each led 5,000 men and were cruising nearby. Should we send out the retreat signal? Si Kongyao glanced around, and Fengxi, who was behind her, immediately took out an iron pipe and pulled the fuse in the air. This was a signal flare specially made with magic crystals. A blood-red light shot into the sky. This signal had never been used before, but this time it was necessary. The distant galloping of horses was getting closer and closer, and so was the light from the torches. From all directions, the Shang army was charging over like a tidal wave. In fact, there was no need to guess. The 100,000 Shang army must have planned this from the start. Taking advantage of the fact that the Longdan army camp was like an arrow at the end of its flight, they wanted to kill Lin Muyu and the others right here. Let's go. Lin Muyu raised her sword and commanded everyone to retreat. Her gaze inadvertently swept across Si Kongyao and Fengxi's faces. Si Kongyao had the cultivation of Holy King, but after 3 days and 3 nights of continuous travel, her strength had been greatly depleted. Even Lin Muyu was the same. The dou qi in her body had been depleted by nearly half, and those ordinary soldiers were even worse off. Even their hands that were holding onto their weapons were trembling. The galloping of horses was getting closer and closer, but in front of them was a flat plain. There was no way to escape. Lin Muyu could not help but feel a sharp pain in her chest. Were the Longdan army camp's elite veterans that had followed her for so many years really going to die in her hands? Fengxi shouted, Lin General, we can't escape, let's fight. No, the front 3,000 men leave. The rear 2,000 men follow me to bring up the rear. Yes, sir. But when the order was passed down, the torches in front did not move. Several Kiliarchs flew over and knelt on the ground with their swords, their eyes red. Lin General, we have followed you for so many years, braved through fire and water, and now that disaster is upon us, Lin General, do you not want us veterans anymore? We will not leave, we would rather die here with Lin General than leave. Obey my orders! Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. Don't forget, you are soldiers, obeying orders is your duty. I order you to retreat to the west immediately and meet up with Liu Bai's infantry camp. The Kiliarchs trembled, and one of them said with tears in his eyes, Lin General, why do we have to lie to ourselves? Those who stay will die, and the one who should leave is Lin General, not us. The Empire can live without us, but it can't live without Lin General. Lin Muyu felt extremely uncomfortable, and his eyes were red as he said, Today's defeat is all on me. I underestimated the enemy, and I was not considerate enough. Since we are all going to stay, then prepare to fight and kill as many as we can. If anyone dies before I kill a single person, I will punish him to be the scapegoat of the Spirit Fire Department when we reach the Ghost Realm. Everyone laughed loudly. Even Si Kongyao couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. However, there was more bitterness in her laughter. She knew that today might be her last battle. Although Lin Muyu was at the Divine Heaven Realm, he would definitely not be willing to abandon his soldiers and escape alone. Lin Muyu might die from exhaustion, and she would definitely not abandon her brother. Perhaps she would also die here. Thinking of this, Si Kongyao's eyes reddened, and tears flowed down uncontrollably. Lin Muyu slowly drew out the Xianyuan sword, and his cloak fluttered in the cold night. He turned to look at the cavalry and pikemen hundreds of meters away and said calmly, Don't forget the rules of our Longdan army camp. Set up the Cosmo sword formation to defend against the cavalry and pikemen. Be careful of the archers, they will arrive soon. Yes. The 5,000 people quickly gathered on the plains, and the Cosmo sword formation was quickly set up by 500 people. The sound of the horses' hooves grew louder. Song Liangqing's subordinates numbered around 5,000. Each of them raised their sabers from afar and shouted something as they charged straight at the enemy. Take the attack! Lin Muyu was at the very front of the sword formation, and he suddenly swept out with the Xianyuan sword. Instantly, a golden sword light swept across the ground, and nearly 100 cavalry quickly fell to the ground. The people at the back were already very fast, and they could not stop at all. They just charged straight over. Feeling a faint sense of weakness in his arm, Lin Muyu took a deep breath and started to use his martial soul. The 7 luminaries' celestial sword enveloped the Xianyuan sword, and he shot out sword chi that was about 3 meters long. He mainly attacked in a small area like this, or else his battle chi would be consumed too quickly. Crack, crack, crack. After 3 consecutive strikes, 3 cavalrymen fell off their horses, but the spear of the 4th cavalryman struck straight into Lin Muyu's chest. Clang. Sparks flew, and the spear was shaken off by the Chiyu armor. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to turn and kick the cavalryman off his horse. At the same time, countless cavalrymen charged over and hit the Cosmo sword formation at the back, and the sound of killing shook the sky. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp who formed the sword formation were already extremely weak, and they could not withstand the impact of the cavalry formation. In the blink of an eye, the sword formation was broken through one after another, and the sword light danced wildly, turning it into a chaotic battle. Yao, follow me closely. Lin Muyu shouted as he retreated and killed the enemy. At the same time, he did not want Si Kongyao to die before him. Si Kongyao's sword danced with the ice profound art, and streams of ice soul sword chi shot into the cavalrymen's bodies. She quickly returned to Lin Muyu's side, and said, Brother, there are too many of them, we can't stop them. Since we can't escape, we will kill as many as we can. Yes. Lin Muyu suddenly opened his arms, and shouted in a low voice, Catasaurus, come out and help me. Roar. The dragon's aura burst out, and a Catasaurus broke through the air, opened its huge mouth, and bit a charging cavalryman into pieces. Then, it shook its huge head to shake off the cavalryman, and crouched down, making a respectful gesture to Lin Muyu. Kill the enemies at will. Lin Muyu did not want to ride on Acatosaurus, and only ordered it to kill the enemies as quickly as possible. Roar! This was what Acatosaurus wanted to hear the most, and it swayed its huge body and rushed into the cavalrymen. At the same time, huge black shadows descended from the sky, and sword chi sprinkled into the crowd. It was the dragon cavalry led by Situ San and Situ Shui, but it seemed that there were not many of them, only a dozen of them. "Master, we are here!" Situ San shouted, "How is it now?" Just in time. Lin Muyu shouted, "Help us kill the enemies." Also, what about Su Jintao's troops? Wei Chao's 5,000 men are being held up by the enemy's 20,000 foot soldiers. This subordinate just came from Su Jintao's troops, and there are only a few Shang army swordsmen around him, and there are about 8,000 of them. He asked me to come and help Master. Lin Muyu frowned. "General Sun, you stay with 3 dragon cavalry. General Shui, you lead the rest of the dragon cavalry to Wei Chao's troops, and help Wei Chou fend off the enemy." When will the troops behind us arrive? Their warhorses are already tired, and they will only arrive after dawn. Lin Muyu felt as if her heart was struck by a heavy blow, and she felt like vomiting blood. She swung her sword and said, "Retreat while fighting, and slowly retreat out of Red Rock City." Torches flickered in the southern forest, and the Shang army was increasing in numbers, while the Qin army was left with only a few men. Among the crowd, the warhorses had all fallen. Su Jintao was wearing a commander's cape, and the 3 golden stars on his collar were stained with blood. His sword was chipped, and he looked at the troops coming from all directions and muttered, "Why are there more and more of them?" At the side, Captain Si Zhanghan said, "Marquis, this is the south of Red Rock City. Since the Shang army has 100,000 soldiers lying in ambush here, the ambush in the south must be to cover their retreat. There should be at least 30,000 to 50,000 of them, and they are attacking towards the north to surround Lin General's troops." "Lin General?" Su Jintao shuddered and said, "Send my order, raise the commander's flag, and lure them here. We will stay here and block the ambush for Lin General." "But the Marquis..." Zhang Han gritted his teeth and said, "If that's the case, we won't be able to escape." "Who can escape tonight?" Su Jintao faintly smiled. He lowered his head and used the back of his cloak to wipe off the blood on his blade. He said, "Immediately pass down my order. Tell our brothers to raise the marshal's flag. If we die here, Marshal Lin will definitely avenge us." "Yes, Commander." That you're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.